do this. I can't do an intro. Hold on. Isabelle, this is going to be the new start. Isabelle, what are we doing today?
Horror movies.
How many?
20.
What? We're going to be watching a video from WatchMojo.com called Top 20 Greatest Horror Movies of All Time. And I don't know. I've been having fun doing these reactions. Haven't done one with Isabel yet, but we're here to provide you with that quality content.
I am so.
And oh, started playing it accidentally. Looks like the Blair Witch Project will be on here. Do you have any um what do you think will be on this list?
Psycho. Psycho will probably be one. Alien. Blair Witch. Maybe Blair Witch. Exorcist. I feel like the usual like canon Western. They might throw a J horror in to be spicy.
Ring.
Um,
Ring.
yeah, Ring. They might throw Ring. Maybe if they're really feeling a frisky Ju-on, but I doubt it. I'm
Scream. My favorite horror movie will be
Scream.
here.
Yeah,
Um,
Scream.
do you have a favorite horror movie?
Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah, my three favorite horror movies are Scream, Texas Chainsaw, and Dawn of the Dead. So,
I would, off the top of my head, Texas Chainsaw, Dracula, like the Lugosi version, and then maybe Alien, maybe Alien, possibly
oh, you
Alien.
like Ridley Scott? I didn't know that.
Either that or maybe like Prince of Darkness or something.
Right. I mean, I'd like to see a curveball in here, but I don't know what
Yeah,
Watch Mojo would consider a curveball.
it
Um,
would be like a Friday the 13th sequel that's not like just the original, I
I don't think
feel.
we'll get any Friday the 13th.
Yeah, maybe, maybe not.
But
Uh,
Elm Street, though, for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Elm Street for sure. In fact, I think that's more likely. I feel like it's going to gravitate to slashers, except for the most like canon
I would like
canon.
the curveball to be like Bride of Chucky, but it won't be. But I could see
The
Watch Mojo doing that.
what's that goddamn movie that you made me watch that you did like
Cherry
three
Falls.
vi No, no, the one that
Cherry
you
Falls,
did
you're
like
right. Isabel, you're so right. Cherry Falls is the
no
best horror
that you
movie
did
ever
like
made.
that you did like three videos on.
Disturbing Behavior in
Behavior,
Space
yeah.
is a
It's like
science
number
fiction
two, The
film.
Shining.
It-
The
It's a
number
science.
two, The Shining. Number one, Disturbing Behavior. We
I
know this
would
might be
beg Watch
controversial because
Mojo
you.
for a job. If that happened, I would beg them to hire me. But Disturbing Behavior is a science fiction film, so it's probably number one on their greatest sci-fi movies. But since we're at horror, it's probably number one going to be Cherry Falls with our Lord and Savior Brittany Murphy, I would hope. Okay. Are you ready to play the video?
I suppose I am.
All right, let's see what's coming in at number 20. And three, two, one, let's do this.
I am so, so sorry for everything that has happened. Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the
What's it
Oh,
top
about
20 horror
Caligari.
movies of all time.
Caligari, really?
No, it's not number 10. There's no way.
For this
Oh,
list,
maybe
we're looking at the
Nosferatu,
world's
though.
most legendary and critically acclaimed horror movies. What do you make of these classics? Let us know in the comments below. Number 20, Suspiria.
Hey, I fully
All right.
support Suspiria being here.
Yeah, me too. I think it was my intro to Argento, so I'm very fond of it. I feel like over time though I've gravitated to Tenebrae and maybe opera, but
I,
like
I, I feel that
Suspiria
way
is
about
just
like
magnificent.
I feel that way about Deep Red, but just put on Suspiria and like right here at the very
Yeah,
beginning, I am converted back into like no, it is the most known for a reason. It's beautiful.
I
Oh my
saw it in the
God.
theater once. I can't remember if it was being like properly like film projected or digital, but it looked
Oh, that'd be so
incredible.
rad.
Like
I mean, right
I
now I'm cool with this list. They're They've won. And
I will
Jessica
say,
Harper was so good. This actor in the back seat here, she was also in that Phantom of the Paradise, that severely underrated Brian De Palma
is she in
musical.
there? Is
Yeah,
she in
she's like
that?
the star
Yeah,
of
I
it.
haven't seen it. That's why. Oh,
She's
that's
so
cool.
good. I only know her from those two films, and she's great. Suspiria is so fucking good. Yeah, of course, I support Suspiria being here.
I will say that like um when I first saw it, when I watched it again 4 months later because I realized I didn't remember a single thing that happened in the plot. And I watched it a second time, I'm like, I still don't remember a thing that actually occurred. I don't know a single character's name. 10 stars. Uh,
But really, it's the
best movie.
design, right? It's all the qualities and
Yeah,
components of the design, the lights, the colors, the sound
yeah.
design. Oh man.
It's pure.
I think it is
It's
my
pure
favorite Goblin
sense.
score. That blah,
Oh,
blah, 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 blah. It's so good.
I
Probably didn't
I
translate
do.
well.
Yeah, actually, it has one of my favorite parts in a score, which is like in one of the songs in the background, you just hear "witch,
Yes.
witch,"
You get
and
some
I
like
love that
proto
shit.
black metal though with like the vocals on it with the
Yeah, it's so
I mean,
good.
Argento also invented black metal, I'm now saying.
He also did an opera.
Good for
But
him.
yeah, no,
No, good for
Suspiria is
him.
a good.
Good. Suspiria's on here. And we already have one foreign film on here, which is better than most WatchMojo lists. So,
I think that's a good call.
but are you ready to go again in three,
Yeah,
2, 1, go?
Dario Argento has always been known for his
She was really
incredible sense
cute,
of style.
Isabelle.
The story of Suspiria
She's a
follows a
cutie.
ballet student named Susie Banyan who finds herself in a very bizarre dance academy with
trying to
supernatural
remember. I've seen her in
undertones.
something else
È
that
la
I
chiave
quite
che ci
like her
consente
in.
di sapere dove vanno le insegnanti ogni notte.
She's one of those great
L'ho
70s
scoperto ieri
actresses
sera.
that
Ho scritto tutto qui.
I wish I
I,
saw
I,
more.
I'll be real. I
Susie,
do
tu
not
sei
think I have
niente.
ever seen it in
That's
Italian.
really
I've
just an
seen
excuse
Suspiria
for
like five
Argento to do
times.
what he
I've
does
never seen
best.
it in
This is
Italian.
I've
arguably the
only seen it in
greatest example
Italian.
of giallo horror, with a surreal
Every version
Giallo.
atmosphere
that's ever
straight out of a
been
nightmare and some
Giallo.
startlingly beautiful
It's me,
images.
I'm
In
a
fact,
Giallo.
nearly every frame of this movie is
Benefit. This is the
composed
high
and
quality
colored to
content you're getting
perfection by
on a
cinematographer
late on a
Luciano
Monday
Tovoli. Add
night.
in some eerie music from
Now I
Goblin
have
and
to post this
Argento
on a Monday
himself,
night.
and you have a movie that
Oh
really bombards the
no!
senses.
Yeah, you just did this to me.
No, you have to poorly dub so it says Tuesday.
Yeah, on this day of the week. It's so
Number
good, though.
19, A Nightmare.
Oh,
And so far, this list is fucking good.
yeah. I mean, like, it's hard to judge the actual ordering so far just because it's like we only know the bottom two. So I don't know,
Yeah.
like, what we're saying these are the bottom two compared
Oh,
to.
no. Yeah, you're right. You're gonna
But
put something
like it's like
terrible above them.
Suspiria, yeah, because then they're saying like, yeah, sure, Suspiria is the 20th best horror movie of all time. I'm like, all time. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then they're gonna say like the Conjuring spin-off movie
Right,
is
yeah. I'm glad you said spin-off movie to cover your tracks,
yeah.
because I was gonna be like, The
No, I was
Conjuring's
just trying to
great.
remember what it was called. I was having a moment.
The Nun.
Um, but yeah, no, Nightmare on Elm Street is great.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, I don't know. I saw over this past Halloween. I don't know why I put it off for so many years. I finally watched the third one, and
I
part
love
of me
it.
feels like yeah, I kind of like that one more just because I like how fucked up it is,
Oh God, it's
and
got one of
how
my favorite
creative it gets.
kills ever when the punk rock chick and he's like, let's get high and overdoses her.
I think that happens. Yeah, that's the third one, right?
Yeah, this is the third one. That's one of my favorite Freddy kills.
But the first one is still fantastic. It's I don't know.
I think the first
Wes
one's a better
Craven.
horror film because I think that there's like a certain kind of there's a certain kind of like twisted kind of Christian um
Yeah,
that's not available in Dream Warriors. There's this Christian kind of like subtext in the first one that's really demented and weird. Um
honestly, it reminds me more of something like Suspiria.
yeah,
Just in that it's more like an experience ride, whereas Dream Warriors is like a very cut and dry slasher movie in a
exactly.
very kind of traditional sense of the
Like if
word.
I was at a party or hanging out with like a girl or something, I'd put on Dream Warriors because it's more fun. You
Yeah,
you get the campier John Saxon performance. It's a bit more fun, but
yeah.
The
Yeah,
first
true.
one though, that's I think I like that they put Suspiria and Nightmare next to each other because it might be a good double feature now that I think about it. Now that you put it like
I
that.
could see it.
My favorite Craven movie is Scream, but that's
Hmm.
half of that is due to Kevin Williamson. But this right here, Nightmare on Elm Street, I think that that's like Wes Craven's actual brilliance as a filmmaker on full display. It's
I
visually a
might
lot more interesting.
I might I kind of like Craven most, so I'm like tempted to just say Scream 4 or My Soul to Take.
Scream 4
Is
is brilliant. Scream 4 is brilliant. You won't catch me saying that. The
but
problem with Scream
anyway,
is that Scream 3 was terrible, and that's because Kevin
yeah,
Williamson wasn't there.
yeah.
But
But I don't know. I think the discussions we've had about Wes Craven have like veered so much on his involvement with Kevin Williamson that I don't know. I'm glad that his solo works, like the things that are strictly his,
yeah.
still kind of resonate so much.
Oh, Nightmare and
Um,
Last House on the Left,
yeah, I'm glad they still have not like I'm glad they were never really overshadowed by
no,
Scream.
no, and I could
Um,
totally accept criticism being um, like the Kevin Williamson pop horror trend actually sanitized Craven to a certain extent, which is true, but
mhm.
that also made him more dangerous because he was more palatable after that.
Yeah, yeah, I get that.
But
I get
I
that.
have, I know what you did last summer behind me. I'm a pure Williamson fan, but I'm ready to go whenever you are.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm sure we'll talk about Scream eventually. Three, two, one, go.
Nightmare on Elm Street. There are slashers, and then there's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Wes Craven's film is now preserved in the National Film Registry, and for good reason. It's one of the most iconic movies ever
Okay.
made. And his
Yeah,
team
him
of
going,
talented
this is
filmmakers
God, and
reinvented the
cutting open
wheel.
his arm
Freddy
and
Krueger
maggots fall
quickly
out. It's
became one of the
fucking
most
brilliant.
evocative villains in movie
Yeah,
history,
it's pretty
and is
baller.
masterfully played by Robert Englund. The
Like, you
story
don't get
also
that in Scream
ingeniously
for a
moved the
reason,
slicing and
but
dicing into the 18. Saw.
pause.
I have not
Saw.
seen Saw.
You haven't seen
I
Saw yet?
no.
Have you seen a James Wan horror film yet?
A recurring bit in my life for the past 3 years has been every year I put Saw #1 on my to watch list for Halloween, and then I never watch it.
Oh man. Because you and I have talked extensively also on a thing that you coined called The Return that happened after Scream. That was
Yeah,
dominated by people like Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, and of course, I think the most talented and enduring of them all, James Wan.
he's he's definitely the one that is most popularly remembered, or he's kind of probably the face of that era in a sense.
And in a
Um,
sense, with the Conjuring universe, the face of the next era, it's weird, it's wild.
yeah,
But
it's very weird. I mean, like he's one of those filmmakers that you can kind of like even by by proxy kind of, you know, you get the
mhm.
gist in a sense. Like I feel like I have what you use like mimetically like figured out what the vibe of his movies are. Most of his movies, even when they jump between eras, just by their place and like culture.
Yeah,
But
for sure. You have to coin the the next era that I'm playing around with that was dominated by like Jennifer's Body. Yeah, you have to come up with what happened in 2009 to 2015.
it was a weird era, wasn't it?
It
I have to
was, and
think
there's a
about
name
that.
for it, but who knows what it is. The glow up? Like I don't know what to call it.
Is this gonna spoil Saw for me? Oh no.
No, 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 no. Saw is in the return. We're in the return with Saw because it's 2004. This is like, Wrong Turn and House of a Thousand Corpses and Cabin Fever or Hostel. Hostel, right? Came out in '04, I
Yeah.
think. So,
Hmm.
the
I love
torture porn
Hostel.
aesthetic. Um, I like
Hmm.
Hostel
Wait,
more, but Saw is definitely like I think maybe a better movie. I don't know. I don't care. It
I
ha
mean, Saw definitely it makes sense to be here is
It
the
makes
main
sense to be
thing.
here,
I
but I
think
also
like if
don't actually know, like for a film that had like 8 sequels or nine, who knows? I
oh,
don't see it too much
fun
anymore.
fact, I have seen a Saw movie. I have only seen Saw 4,
Oh.
and it was like one of the most schizophrenic viewing experiences I've ever had. I was because it takes place apparently in the same like 24-hour period as Saw 3, but I hadn't seen Saw 3, so they were constantly talking about what happened. There's that fucking transition with the broken glass in the door or whatever, and it
If 9/11 didn't happen and this torture porn thing became the craze and like people like Roth and Wan and Zombie took center stage, if that didn't happen, I think that our boys over at Dark Castle with House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts would have given us a much more entertaining return. I think new metal would have existed for another 10 years. But nope, terrorists had to take that away from us too.
This
But are you ready?
yeah.
3, 2, 1, and go.
franchise experienced diminishing returns, but there's no denying that the original Saw is an absolute classic. It's not only a well-written movie full of memorable characters and iconic twists, but it also helped revolutionize the horror genre.
Shawnee Smith, who plays Amanda, is amazing.
You don't know me, but
Chick wearing this vice.
I didn't know about this character at all.
Countless
I've
Saw
never
She
seen
clones
comes
were
back in,
produced
like,
in
3
order
or
to
4 of the
capitalize on the
films.
torture trend it began.
I even
But
saw
none
news that she's
managed
coming
to
back for
capture the
another
magic
Saw,
of
which is
James
huge
Wan's
news
little
if
movie that
true.
could. While comparisons were made to
She's
Seven
amazing.
and other industrial crime movies of its
I
ilk,
would never
Saw
call this
carved
like
out its own
Seven.
identity through its unique concept and grotesque violence. It spawned one of the biggest franchises in horror history, and Jigsaw has firmly established himself as one of the genre's
I feel
most
like every movie on
recognizable
this list
faces.
inspired a franchise.
what breaks to be
I love the
alive.
Shining
Number
franchise.
17, Frankenstein.
Doctor Sleep. All
Frankenstein.
right. All right. Now we're all right. Fuck yeah. Okay.
Is this a controversial take that Bride of Frankenstein I think is a lot better?
No, I feel like that's a popular take today.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I agree anymore. I used to feel that way, but I kind of like the, I guess, starkness of the of just Frankenstein. You know, like
Right.
Bride is obviously like essential. Like I think half of my favorite horror filmmakers, their whole like career-long visions can just be traced back to Bride of Frankenstein. Like
Right.
like half of Toby Hooper's movies are just remakes of Bride of Frankenstein. So I think it's an essential movie. But I don't know. I just really like how dark the first one is. I guess that maybe because I'm also a fan of Dracula. Dracula is my favorite of the Universal cycle, and Frankenstein is more like that. It's more kind of like quiet and slow.
One sec. I can understand what you're saying, but it does sound a little gargly.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
I can
might have touched my.
understand.
Yeah. All right. Is
Okay.
that better? Am I better?
Yeah, like we were able to make all that out. But me and the audience in
Um,
the future, we were able to make all of that out. But
you get the gist. I like it. I think it's a really like gothic, dark movie.
I
Um,
do too. I do too. I guess Frankenstein,
Also,
Bride of Frankenstein don't matter. James Whale was incredible. He really was.
I think really bigger than Karloff. I'm having a moment forgetting his name, but the actor that plays Dr. Frankenstein
Colin
is
Clive or something.
yes, fucking incredible, I think.
He was, and he was
I,
like a tortured fucking soul though. It's so sad.
yeah, dude is fucking phenomenal in this. As is he played the guy that plays Renfield in Dracula plays
Yeah.
Igor in this. And
Yeah.
he I think is also fantastic in this. He's not
You
as
know,
funny as he is in Dracula, but
I'll save our fight for later when I tell you that Todd Browning directed Dracula terribly.
no, it's like one of
It'll
my
come
top
later.
10 movies.
Oh, and Todd Browning was asleep behind the wheel.
No.
Arguably the most famous horror movie ever made, Frankenstein has been thrilling moviegoers since the early 30s. Based on Mary Shelley's popular novel of the same name, Frankenstein is all about the dangers of playing God.
Boring, am I right?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! In the name of God!
Oh yeah, this also has the guy that plays Van Helsing.
Frankenstein's monster is
They just
undeniably one
recycled
of
the
the
whole
most
cast
popular
for
movie
like 4
characters of all
movies.
time. What with the
Yeah.
instantly recognizable makeup and the notable performance by Boris Karloff, the themes it presents are also timeless, as it asks questions regarding technological advancement and the nature of unbound curiosity. The movie also spawned one of the greatest sequels ever in Bride of Frankenstein.
That's
To a
right.
new world
Yeah,
of
it's
gods
so
and monsters.
beautiful and good, and I
Basically,
love it.
everything about it is historic. Number 16,
Okay,
Ring.
I'm gonna pause and also say if I were asked to show a clip from Bride of Frankenstein, I'd probably have like Elsa Lancaster as Bride of Frankenstein in my clip, not the weird old villain guy.
The 2 gay men drinking together.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, WatchMojo, you sleeping on the job. And now we got
Uh,
Ring.
well, this is one you can talk a lot for. I've only seen the American version of this, actually.
So you've seen the good one.
Oh, is that the deal? Oh
That's my
no.
deal. Gore
Uh,
Verbinski did a much better job, and The Ring, I think, was much more applicable to the American concerns in 2002 when this movie came out. It was like the first post 9/11 horror movie that dealt with a scary, grainy video of something from your like recessed past coming back to kill you. It was
yeah.
beautiful. I have nothing
I
else to say. J horror is bad. You ready?
Oh, what? No.
What?
Kyoshi.
I thought I could just
Kyoshi.
drop a bomb like that and we can move forward. Wait, do you like
No.
J horror? Are you admitting to being a nerd right
I
now?
I love Kiyoshi Kurosawa at least. I have
Ooh,
more to explore, but Kyoshi is a fucking god.
I like the movie Audition.
Audition I have not seen. I like Ichi the Killer though, if you count that. But
Um, sure. I mean, there's never been a good Japanese horror movie. Those are just facts, and I'm sure no one will get upset with me for saying that because it's just a fact. Like Ring, this was a bad movie until Gore Verbinski, the acclaimed director behind the
I
Pirates of the Caribbean films, made it into a wonderful, masterful horror film.
I I saw the Verbinski one once and I wasn't really into it, but in my defense, it was the first time I was ever hungover and I was violently
Uh,
hungover. So I was kind of just half awake watching Naomi Watts freak out and the color palette was stressing me out. So I
yeah,
got to the end and I was like, yeah,
you've really got to be clear-headed to enjoy the master class, the sophistication of The Ring from 2002. So it's not like J horror. J horror, you can be the dumbest person in the world and think it was good. Are you
no,
ready?
oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, three, two, one, go.
Directed by Hideo Nakata, Ring is easily one of the most popular Japanese horror
I
films.
still can't get
Spawning
over
a
her
very
going,
popular American
Jalo.
remake, Ring is about a cursed
Jalo.
videotape that kills its users within a week.
みんなもあの噂してたからさ
For the record, I don't think that all J horror is bad, but I do think that everyone who
今日で
likes it
1
is
週
a
間
fucking nerd.
The movie contains an
No.
outstanding villain in Sadako Yamamura,
Now
who
that's
is
what
the
I'm. Look at
Japanese
that.
equivalent
Now
of
that's
Samara
real
Morgan.
cinema.
Some of its visuals have also made their way into the horror canon, including the eerie tape itself, and the image of Sadako emerging from the television to attack Ryuji. Ring was so successful it helped popularize J-horror in the West,
I like the
and
Grudge
influenced
American more
numerous other
because of
films in
our
the
Lord
genre,
and Savior,
including The
Sarah
Grudge and
Michelle
Dark
Gellar.
Water. The
Powerhouse.
early 2000s J-horror craze is all thanks to Ring.
じゃあ俺が見終わったらここの電話が鳴るわけだ。
4人死んでるのよ同じ日に
だったらお祓いでもすればいい。
Number 15, The Innocent.
Really? What?
The
The Innocents.
I haven't seen this, but I've read the book it's based on, so I know the plot.
It's a good movie.
This was actually on my recent October list, but because I was busy, I never got around to it. But I know a lot of directors I like cite it as an influence a lot. Actually, I think Kiyoshi Kurosawa might have
Oh
cited
my
it.
God. Are you ready? Are you done? Are you ready?
Oh, do you like The Innocents?
I do
What's
like The
the deal?
Innocents, but you poisoned the well with your J horror reference.
No,
Are you ready?
no,
Three,
no,
two, one,
no.
go.
Henry James's The Turn of the
Sorry,
Screw
guys.
is one of the
I would have
greatest
talked
horror
about this
stories
film provided
ever
good
written,
insight,
and
but
it's been adapted countless times for the
Isabelle
screen.
and her J
Jack
horror
Clayton's attempt is
fascination.
undeniably the best.
I don't know what the children saw, but they used to follow Quentin, Miss Jessel.
Henry
Trailing
James
along
is
behind,
incredible,
hand in
by the
hand,
way.
whispering. There was too
It's a
much
great
whispering
movie.
in this house, miss.
This is a
I'm
masterfully
surprised it's
constructed
here.
psychological horror movie with
I wouldn't
impeccable
put it
craft
here,
in every
to be
department.
honest.
Clayton's direction is confident,
But
and the screenplay, which
it's
was
good.
co-written by Truman
I didn't know
Capote,
this
is
movie
deep
was
and
like that
ambiguous.
much in the
Cinematographer Freddie
mainstream,
Francis
I
helps
guess.
build an
Me
oppressive
neither.
atmosphere through
I
its
thought it
haunting
was a
lighting, and the
relatively
electronic sound design by Daphne
kind of
Oram was
forgotten
revolutionary
film
for
for
the
like,
Yeah.
time. The
yeah, like
Innocents proves
mainstream
that the movie
audiences.
isn't always worse than the book, even when the book is this darn good.
We must try to learn what it is these horrors want. Think, Mrs.
Deborah Kerr
Grace.
is cool.
The answer must lie in the past.
Number 14,
What?
Hereditary.
What?
That one was inevitable. We're gonna get the witch on here. We're gonna get the witch.
A film
Uh,
from 2018 at 14?
I don't have much to say. I got over my like most profound hate of Ari Aster like 3 years ago, or less than that, like a couple years ago. I don't know. I kind of just got over it because I was
I
bored of
I
being mad
like
about him, but I don't like him. I
um
think Midsummer is a legitimately bad movie.
yeah, I hate
Hereditary, I just
Midsummer.
think Hereditary, I just think is goofy. So I actually had fun watching it, but not for like any sincere reason. I just
Right.
thought it was like absurd, and I couldn't. I mean, sincerely, while I was watching it, I thought it was intentional. Like I thought that Ari Aster legitimately saw like the comedy in the situation, and I'm still actually not
Yeah.
unconvinced of that. Like I think he does. Like, I don't think you can stage like the decapitation and not
Yes.
think
Yeah.
that's funny.
Well,
So I don't
judging by
know.
his like short films,
Yeah,
it's not
Dickhart.
beyond him.
Yeah, no, he's more vulgar in his sensibilities than Tarantino, like considerably more. And I don't think he really has much to say here, which is I think why I'm not that offended by it.
But that's
Um,
also why I wouldn't put it at 14. So like I
oh,
sincerely like
yeah, because like Midsummer is him trying to, I think, get at something, and it indirectly
and I hate
becomes
it.
fucked up.
I
Yeah,
hate Midsummer. But Hereditary, I sincerely enjoy that film. Putting it at number 14 on a top 20 greatest horror movies of all time list is kind of like laughable at best. Um,
it definitely
Especially now,
has.
like what you said earlier, being like, yeah, it started off good, but what are they going to say is better than Suspiria? Like,
Yeah,
apparently Hereditary.
I do think some hate towards Hereditary is just that it's like the blueprint for what horror kind of is now, I guess. Even though The Witch came first, I feel like
I
people cite
I
this
love The
more.
Witch. I actually would prefer
Me
The
too,
Witch
actually.
being here. Like, if
Oh,
you
me too. I like The Witch. I don't like The Lighthouse, but I like The Witch. I think
same,
it's good.
I would rather see The Witch if you're gonna put in like a new, what do they call
I
it?
like
What is the stupid term? Elevated horror
I
movie.
just
If you're
call
gonna
it
put one
new
in here.
horror, like NU, new horror. But
No, that's House on Haunted Hill.
oh no, that's a new metal horror.
No, you just coined the term. It's a new horror. House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts
Uh,
and Ghost Ship and
but
Gothica.
I even respect Robert Eggers more because at least he's like generally honest that he doesn't really have much to say about anything. He just likes making shit that has a cool vibe.
Yeah. I
And
just putting Hereditary here is just pandering to who? Like who are you trying to impress with this?
people under 25, I don't know.
Ari Aster made one of the greatest debuts in horror with
Okay, that's a
Hereditary
So
lot.
and instantly established his reputation as a
oh yeah,
master of
by the
the
way, this
genre.
is like bar
Heralded
none
as
one of
one
the
of the
worst
most disturbing
performances I've ever
movies of
seen.
the
Tony
decade,
Oh yeah,
Collette.
Toni
Hereditary
Collette.
follows a troubled
It
family
makes me
as they
appreciate
deal with
Gabriel
grief
Byrne
and
so
mental
much more
illness.
though, because
So
I'm like,
full
he's
of the
such a
same
gracious
and
actor. He just sits
resentment
there and
and
lets
always
her
so
do
annoyed.
whatever the
Well,
fuck she
now your
wants.
sister is dead.
The story
Toni
is
Collette
rich in
legitimately
thematic
gives one of my
material,
favorite
and it twists
performances
and
ever
turns
in The
in
Sixth
many
Sense,
unexpected
and then in the
directions.
past
The
10
visuals
years,
are
she's
as
just become like
deeply
my least
unsettling as they
favorite
are
actress of all
gorgeously
time.
captured
But
by
awkwardly,
cinematographer
she's
Pavel
become one of the most
Pogorzelski.
like
But the real
beloved
star of the
because of
show is
these
Toni
crazy
Collette, who
overacting
gives a
performances.
commanding and harrowing
Yeah, people
performance
love
as
that
the
shit.
tortured Annie Graham.
But
The
I
fact
cannot
that she
believe they
wasn't
doubled down
nominated
on
for an
this is the
Oscar is
best horror
simply
debut of all
unforgivable.
time, and he instantly
Steve,
established
please, I
himself as a
really,
master.
really
Like,
need you to
what
be
the
open to this.
fuck?
Please, please, I promise.
That's more than
Both of you.
pandering to people
Please,
under
I need you to be
25.
open.
This is
Please.
written by
Number
someone under
13,
25.
Night of
Night of the Living Dead.
the Living Dead.
Yeah,
George A.
yeah.
Yeah, I would like Dawn of the Dead more, but yeah.
No, I mean, I actually, I think I've finally accepted that Dawn is like my least, or
What?
yeah, it's my least favorite of the three,
Oh,
of the
god damn
original
it.
three.
Did you hear that?
Um,
Isabelle can't join us anymore. Sorry, Isabelle.
no,
It's been
I
really
love Dawn of the
nice.
Dead.
No, it's been nice having you around.
No, no.
Dawn of the Dead is fucking beautiful. The others don't even
Oh, it's
compete.
great. Uh, I like Day of the Dead. I don't know.
Like,
I
The
like,
Godfather isn't as good as Dawn of the Dead.
oof. Yeah,
What do you mean,
that's true.
oof?
I said that's true.
Yeah, it's true. But you're telling
But
me that Night of the Living Dead is better than the movie that's better than The Godfather.
yeah, but you're talking to someone that doesn't give a shit about The Godfather.
Whatever. Most people
But
do. There's someone watching this
not.
right now going, what the fuck is wrong with this?
Whoa, what?
First J Horror and now Francis?
But Night of the Living Dead is great, by the way. It's
It is great. It is
I
great. Well,
I
I
love.
would say that it's interesting because of the explorations of race, but that is also prevalent in Dawn of the Dead, and it's kind of, I think, done more deliberately, or at least in a
Well,
way that's like a bit better.
I like Night of the Living Dead because um I like it how it engages with like just in general cinema's roots, and it kind of argues for there being a comorbidity between like film and racism because the whole
True.
thing is like the besieged cabin from like Birth of a Nation. Except the weird thing is that in this movie, the hero is obviously a black man, but also every single zombie is white, like a white person.
Yeah. And of
Like
course,
they
he's
are
like
all
basically
Caucasian.
hunted down and lynched at the end of the film.
Yeah, and like it's like the exact reverse of Birth of a Nation. It's like the mindless hordes are the white people attacking the black man in a besieged cabin, and
Well,
in the end
that is an
he dies.
interesting idea.
And
That's an
and
interesting
also
reading.
because and there's also the woman who he has to protect, and in Birth of a Nation, like the kind of crux of the racism is this fear that they're going to rape white women. And throughout this movie, like a black man is protecting this white woman who's barely cognizant of his existence because
Yeah, and
she's
then
like
in Dawn of the Dead, a black man is protecting like a bunch of fucking white people and like helping give birth to babies.
yeah, yeah. It's really
But
cool.
but
Um,
I think that that's an interesting reading, and as a horror film, I think it does deal with something viscerally horrific. But I get something, I don't know. Night of the Living Dead is like it's like tragic, but I do get like a sense of not hopefulness, but a sense that this could have been avoidable, or at least the murdering
yeah.
of the hero could have been avoidable. Whereas Dawn of the Dead is like, I think it's a declaration of nihilism from the very beginning, right then and there. And it's like, this is unavoidable now. This is just irreversible. This is,
Well, that's why I like Day of the Dead because Day of the Dead kind of meets those two because at the end of the day, the whole like kind of point of Day of the Dead is why can we not just let America fucking die already?
hmm Yeah, it ramps
And
up to that point, but there's also just something so cinematic about the fucking shopping mall. I don't know. I think it
yeah,
looks
yeah,
beautiful. And also
the
Savini's
Goblin
effects were
score.
amazing.
Isn't that the Goblin score? Didn't Goblin, or am I thinking of Fulci's Zombie 2?
You might be
Or,
thinking of both. I don't know though.
I think I am thinking of both actually. I think they did do both, but regardless,
Regardless,
um,
Romero deserves to always be mentioned when it comes to horror masters. And
we
the fact
haven't
that we're
even.
debating over which one of these amazing films in this incredible origin, like the incredible trilogy of the Dead, is the best. Uh,
I can't. I haven't even mentioned my favorite movie of his, and it's not even in here. Martin. It's Martin. I love Martin.
are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, three, two, one, and go.
Romero proved budget doesn't make a movie. With a minuscule amount of money,
Keeping your
chocolate
blood
sauce for
pressure
blood,
elevated
and
today.
outfits
Yeah, you
bought from
did it.
Goodwill, Romero crafted one of the most revolutionary horror films of all time.
They're coming to get you,
I respect the
Barbara.
production
The
in Night of the Living
first
Dead
in
a
his
lot. I like
historic
the
Dead
indie
franchise,
filmmaking
Night
behind it.
portrays the outset
Oh
of
yeah,
the
it looks like
zombie
crap.
outbreak. The film earned
Like,
an
I mean, like the
enormous amount of
production
controversy
quality.
for its
Yeah, it's
content
Yeah,
great
and
though.
on-screen violence, and
because it
some
was
critics
shoestring as
immediately
fuck.
dismissed it as another
But then he
cheap
proves that if you
B-movie.
give him a lot of
Today, the
money,
film
Dawn of the
is
Dead, he'll
recognized
give you
not only
something
for its craft,
beautiful.
but
My
also
God.
its historic
He's
context.
good at
By
the extremes. He
introducing
can
the
do
modern
everything with
concept of
nothing or
zombies,
everything with
Romero
everything.
changed the very fabric of the horror genre, and his influence has
He did.
transcended film
I
and
feel like
reverberated
economic
throughout
has
pop
become a
culture.
meme as a descriptor, critical descriptor, but I feel like he is like he knows how to, you know,
Yeah.
be
Number
efficient with
12,
what his
Rosemary.
resources are.
This is one of my favorite horror movies ever.
Yeah,
Love it.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I am a big fan of Rosemary's Baby.
I think it's perfect. I think Roman Polanski was a really interesting filmmaker. I think this is a really interesting movie made at a really interesting time, especially if we're dealing with like thematics of a woman's right to choose and abortion being a hot button issue in
Hmm
1968, just like it is today in our modern era. Dude, Rosemary's Baby is just so complex and sophisticated. And I think that
Yeah.
Mia Farrow's performance is extremely underrated and undervalued. She's incredible throughout the whole film.
hmm
Um, Ruth Gordon tends to like overshadow her, like her weird neighbor, and I don't think that that's fair. I think she's incredible in this film,
You
and
think?
I
Uh,
do.
I, I haven't heard that, but I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, you haven't heard that. I don't know why. A lot of Woody Allen fans out there, big mad. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But she's phenomenal in this film, and Roman Polanski's direction is so on point. This might be, uh, I think that this, uh, what is my favorite Polanski movie? Probably this one. He was such a visceral filmmaker, right? He was such a visceral filmmaker.
I
Um,
I would say this too.
yeah, yeah, I think it
Uh,
is better than Chinatown. There was something so like perfectly like cultivated about it. A
yeah.
wonderful design. I love that it starts like a Doris Day film deliberately, and it kind of self-destructs and it inverts itself into the most satanic, literally thing that you've ever seen in your life. Polanski was great, and I do think that he took the language established by people like Hitchcock
Yeah. Oh,
um
absolutely.
and he
Absolutely.
and he followed it like a really good pupil, and then he expanded it like what you're supposed to do. I think he established himself as a master. I don't think Ari Aster established himself as a master with Hereditary. I think Roman
Yeah.
established himself as one here because you can tell that Repulsion was like right before this because Repulsion
Yeah.
he's almost
And
dead.
it's similar themes. Similar
Similar
themes.
themes for sure, but he's I
I
think a lot
cannot
less
imagine.
misogynistic here. Like he's very
Oh yeah.
misogynistic on Repulsion, which I love. It's the Catherine Deneuve rape fantasy. It's a great movie, but in Rosemary's Baby, I do love his he expressed the horrors of being a woman, like the new and emerging independent woman archetype in 1968, still being controlled by by the patriarchs and the weird fucking Satanists all around you. Like he really
I
did this
cannot
film justice.
I cannot imagine what how Polanski so intimately understood what the fear of women looks like.
Oh,
But
he's seen it.
yeah, uh, which is why I find these so creepy, but like in the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
interesting of ways, because he knows exactly what the fuck he's tapping into.
We know that Polanski is problematic, but that's also what makes his movies
He
so
is?
visceral. I'm not going to justify it, but I'm going to say like, it's interesting that after like Manson murdered his wife and his unborn child, he made Macbeth the bloodiest fucking Shakespeare movie you can ever watch, like ultra violent. Like he was going through shit,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, he's done horrible things, but I think that those I think that horrible people can make interesting art, and Rosemary's Baby is definitely interesting, and it's really creepy because it has to do directly with Satan. So
hmm
I would never defend Roman Polanski's character, um, but his direction. Well, I think a lot of directors are fucking bad people, and we just know about the bad things that some of them have done as opposed to all of them.
I
I
would
think that
probably
like
argue most of them are.
yeah, I think 70% of the directors on this list have seen a dead body. and like didn't report it, at least. But I'm ready when you are.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Three, two, one, and go.
Rosemary's Baby. This is a perfect example of taking a good book and turning it into something extraordinary.
Whatever.
Adapted from Ira Levin's novel, Rosemary's Baby tells
It's
the famous
perfect.
story of Rosemary Woodhouse, a young woman who starts to fear for the life of her unborn child.
Rocky.
What's really true is that horror
They can't
movies
be
have the
defeated,
best
Love.
themes or scores, I swear.
Aren't you his mother?
The movie is not just a great piece of horror. It is a
Yeah,
fantastically
pretty
constructed film.
consistently.
Nearly every
Yeah.
aspect of its production has earned acclaim
And you had a
and
good John
awards
Cassavetes
recognition,
performance in
including
this
the
film,
writing and
too.
directing, Christoph Komeda's
And
music, and
Cassavetes
the
fucking hated
performances of Mia
Polanski because
Farrow and Ruth
Cassavetes
Gordon,
is the
the
goat.
latter of whom won the Oscar
Yeah,
for Best Supporting Actress.
was that
It
him he
is
had
an
that
oppressive
argument with
movie
where he
about
was
the
like, you know
paranoia
nothing
of
of
pregnancy
women?
and
Yeah,
about being
yeah.
helpless in a world that takes advantage of you.
Polanski is like,
Number
monogamy
11.
doesn't work. We'll pause here, but monogamy doesn't work because like a man can only stay sexually attracted to a woman for so long. And Cassavetes like, you're a
Yeah.
fucking idiot. I love my wife. I'm
My
really
wife.
attracted to her. Like, I want to go home and sleep with her right now. And then
No,
Roman just
he
shut the
did.
fuck up about it. And like he had Cassavetes was already making movies by that point. He made Shadows and I think he was finishing Faces, and Cassavetes was like, the way Roman would make these scenes is so contrived, so like heartless, so soulless, you know. But I think because he learned from Hitchcock how to make films. But now, why don't you go off on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh, yeah. Maybe my favorite movie, I guess. It's a top like three contender at least. I watched it again recently for the first time in a couple of years, but yeah, I could write a fucking book on it. I will say I'm becoming less convinced that it's actually his best. I think that might actually be the Funhouse, but I think Texas Chainsaw is just the one that cuts the deepest, maybe just because it's so pure and less conceptual. I think it
Hmm.
really taps into this like mythic quality. Like I feel like you all his like weird fixations started here. Um, the fact that at the beginning of the movie they're talking about astrology and how astrology foretells that this is going to be a bad day. And throughout his work he goes back often to stuff like that, like kind of like weird fringe or pseudoscientific ways of like putting meaning into the world. It's a thing he comes back to often, like TV psychics and shit like that, or like pop psychology. And so I like how it starts that way. It's just like this is gonna be a bad day because the fucking Saturn is in retrograde and it says so. But and then it becomes the worst day ever. But I don't know. It's like Eyes Wide Shut. It's one of those movies that I've just like watched so many times that I start noticing the weirdest shit. And I like the last few, and I just started thinking the whole time about how Franklin is actually the best character in the movie.
No. Now you've
Uh,
watched it too many times. He's the worst.
he's a freak, but I think he's funny because if Texas Chainsaw is about the supposed like normal people being confronted with the kind of dark side of the world that they live in that kind of makes their world able to exist, you know.
Hmm.
You if you didn't know what was in it, you would eat it shit. And so like they
Yeah.
don't mind animal slaughter as long as they don't have to see the fucking freaks who kill the animals they eat. And Franklin is the only one in the movie who doesn't seem freaked out by this shit. And he's like he kind of exists between both worlds and he's also like
No.
obviously crippled.
No.
But it's a weird thing, like, because he's a fucking stupid character, for the record. But it's just like, again, like I watch it so many times that I like start like analyzing this shit, and it amazes me. So I don't know. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It's a really perfect movie. It's
I love the film. It's like it's anarchic. It's insane. It's like a fucking jolt. It's like being struck by lightning when you're watching this thing. It's so
yeah.
good. It's so cool. I
It's also
forget.
so
We've covered so
funny.
many goddamn movies. Did we cover the '03 Jessica Biel one? Was that me
Yeah,
and you?
yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
we did. Yeah, the Michael Bay one. Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
That was exciting too.
I also, by the way, love the comedy in this movie.
Oh, I love
Um,
I forget his name, but his brother, Leatherface's brother, is my favorite character. That guy's awesome. The hitchhiker
yeah,
guy.
he has one of my favorite sections in the movie. The whole when he's actually hitchhiking, when he hops in the back of their car. Um, and he, you see just this like absolute rage
Right.
towards everything that these people represent.
Yeah.
Um, he's kind of like the thing shoved in the closet that they want to forget about, and then he comes back and ruins their fucking shit.
And
But
I
I
wouldn't say it has like it features like the best final girl, but the most cinematic one.
no,
Like I can't get her
yeah,
in the back of that truck like out of my mind. It's so like and of course Hooper gets you back to back with like legendary shit with Leatherface like
yeah, the
flailing
Leatherface fucking
around.
dancing in the sunlight, and the movie ends.
And
And
I can't get the chick out of my mind in the back of that truck covered in blood and then like all that meaning and all that horror. It's just so powerful. Oh
and
man.
again, this movie is just his first of many remakes of or like engagements with Bride of Frankenstein. Because Leatherface is just Frankenstein's monster. He's this like underdeveloped like man-child monster who is sexually stunted.
Hmm.
He doesn't understand like sex, and he gets like abused by his family. Um, and he just wreaks havoc everywhere by accident. My favorite scene maybe is when he kills the second teenager, and then you see he's like, oh fuck. He's like, I'm in so much
Yeah.
trouble, and he has like a fucking panic attack because he knows his brother is gonna yell at him because he killed a bunch of teenagers, and he's like, oh, I fucked up, dude. It's like when a kid like scratches his dad's car, like he's like freaking out, but he
Yeah.
like killed a bunch of people.
I think like the
And
most
then his brother
legendary
yells at
death in
him.
this movie is one of the ones that brought over to the remake. One of the ones that stayed was that
Is
I
it
think
the
the first
hook?
time you see Leatherface and he hits him in the head with the
Oh, the
hammer when he
hammer.
opens that
Yeah.
door.
You hear
That's what
like a
happens
fucking
to
pig
Eric Balfour
squeal.
in the remake. Yeah. Yeah, they kept it.
You
Like
hear a
it's
pig
so fucking
squeal, and then
good.
it's just like the yeah.
Oh, it's so good. And didn't the mafia like own this movie for the longest time? Like the
Uh,
actual
I
mafia.
I think I heard a story of something like that,
I think
but
they did. I think because like Hooper was making this for nothing and trusting companies that he shouldn't trust, and one of them happened to be a front for the mafia. And then the mafia is like, because they were putting out shitty movies on purpose as a front, and then this one was good, and it made them a lot of money. So, for a
they
long time, this movie was owned by the fucking mafia, and no one from this movie saw a dime for the longest time because of that.
oh they once I think worked for like 28 hours straight or some shit in
Yeah, and
like
they didn't see a
99
dime
degree
from it,
weather.
not because of Toby Hooper, but because the people who owned the rights to it were literally the mob.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fucked up. It's
Hooper
so
needs a
fucked up.
mank. Make a Hooper mank.
Bro, you're preaching to the choir.
All
I
right.
as his acolyte, but
You
yeah.
ready?
Yeah, let's go.
3, 2, 1,
The
go.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The horror genre can be separated into before and after the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Brew.
Like many classic horror films, the
I mean,
movie
you can say
initially
that about
received a
any film that's
lukewarm
ever
reception
existed.
and earned enormous controversy
I
I
for
can
think
its
this is
seemingly
pretty
arbitrarily
immoral
decent.
separate
content. But
anything.
time did not blunt this
There's my
violence.
guy.
The
Sucks.
movie is now praised for its technical filmmaking, which includes gritty cinematography from
Sally!
Daniel Poole and a
Sally!
terrific sense of time and setting. Just
Let's go
feels
to the
good.
country, Frank.
He's one of the 10
Boys
most
don't want to
annoying
go mess
characters
around
in
in a
slashers.
warehouse. Those things is dangerous. You're liable to get hurt.
Of course, it's also
I'm
a
starting to think I won't
history-making
see
film.
Cherry
It helped
Falls on here,
popularize the
Isabelle.
slasher genre and introduce the iconic character Leatherface, who, in turn, influenced many other
I'd lose my
silent slashers
mind,
like
though.
Jason Voorhees and Michael
They
Myers.
usually have a
Needless to
curveball, but I
say,
feel
the
like we
genre
already
was
saw
never
it
the
with
same after
Hereditary.
Toby Hooper got his
Hereditary,
hands on it.
The
100%,
events
but
of
I'm
our
sure we'll get
character
one
lead to
more.
the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, the Texas
Chainsaw.
Chainsaw Massacre.
Number 10, Scream.
Hey, all right.
Hey,
I had my
beautiful.
moment. You have
Wes
yours.
Craven
I love
Given a
this
few
movie so
years
much.
for a second
I
time on
love it
this
so
list for
much that
this
I'm
And
week,
trying to
which
get on a
is
good freeze frame of Rose McGowan
easily
because I respect her,
one of the most
but I can't.
I actually just
groundbreaking
watched it
slashers ever
again
made.
recently for the first time
Play
in
Psycho?
many moons. So it's very fresh in my mind right now.
I love this movie to death. It's one of my favorite films of all time, not just horror films. Man,
Hmm.
I think we've talked about this movie so much.
Without actually talking about
Yeah, we've never
it.
actually covered Scream, but
But
my
we've
God,
mentioned it enough times to like pull together like a 90-minute video at least,
you just
possibly
gave me
twice
a
as
good
long.
idea. It'll be
Just
a
gonna
Scream
go through it.
analysis with just us every time we've talked about it, because over time we have talked about its
We've
postmodern
accidentally written a
qualities.
book
Yeah,
without actually knowing it.
exactly. We've talked about its postmodern qualities. We've talked about the way that it seemed to diagnose a certain part of culture that was obsessed with violent media. It seemed to predict bored white mass shooters. Um, and but I think more interesting than anything are those postmodern qualities, are the idea that of life imitating art, imitating life, and it becomes impossible to tell a difference until Sidney Prescott's life is that of a cartoon. That
Hmm.
we only do things because of their cinematic possibilities. That that life, when it feels at its most real, is when it feels at its most cinematic, which is anti-life. Ultimately, well, the thing is with talking about Scream, I can get lost really quick if I want to just stay superficial. And a brilliant script from Kevin Williamson, incredible direction from Wes Craven, and a wonderful cast of Rose McGowan, Nev Campbell, Jamie Kennedy, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew fucking Lillard,
Yeah,
David
my
Arquette
my
killing
heart
it.
and soul, Matthew Lillard. I
Just an
think the channel's
incredible film.
favorite character, Dewey, the channel's mascot.
Dewey is incredible in this film, okay? If you don't
We don't
understand
love him as
Dewey,
much as someone else in this circle, but
oh, have you ever, you've met Jane, right? That's Jane's favorite character is Dewey.
yeah, I know. She told me once that she likes Scream 90% just for Dewey.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. You don't meet too many big David Arquette fans. And then
Dewey
she's like,
heads.
no, I'm not. I'm a Dewey fan. That's what you don't get. And I'm like, that's really cool, Jane. That's awesome. Jane from Style is Substance. You can find
The
her on
Dewey
YouTube.
heads.
Also, Courtney Cox is great. I figured if I named everyone else in the Drew Barrymore. Okay, everybody, it's the right place, right time. I do think that Pulp Fiction came and kicked open the door for for big companies to kind of invest in more postmodern, more and more kinds of films that seem to challenge or at least recognize and reorganize the meta narrative, right? And Scream, I think, did
Hmm.
that perfectly, did that wonderfully. Scream
Yeah,
2 is
I agree.
arguably even better, and then Scream 4, out of the park, you guys. Same dream team, and I love it. I love it. If you're interested in what I think about Scream, click on almost any one of my other videos that I have with Isabelle. I'm sure it's brought up, but primarily probably go watch the Scream 2 video because it takes the basic idea of Scream and kind of complicates it. The thing that makes Scream 1 unique is that it is vilifying the person who you're giving your virtue, your virginity to, and that makes Scream a little bit more unique. Like, it's not Michael Myers, it's not some fucking boogeyman you should be afraid of. It's literally your Johnny Depp knockoff boyfriend and his ridiculously dumb ruling best friend. And that also makes Scream kind of viscerally interesting, whereas Scream 2 definitely gets a bit more philosophical. Like uh, Mickey and Mrs. Loomis, it's not necessarily too visceral with its killers there, but here it is
Mickey
like someone who has violated you.
Mickey sees just the code of the Matrix, and
Yeah, exactly. Mickey sees
he
the code of the Matrix. Scream 2
he
is better
took the
for
red pill.
philosophical, but I think that's what makes Scream 4 possibly. We should talk about it one day because it is maybe the most interesting to talk about because it has that
Yeah,
visceral impact of Billy, but also the philosophical components of a Mickey. That's both of it.
yeah. I love Scream 4.
Basically, Scream, I think the most interesting line or revealing one is movies don't make psychos, movies make psychos more creative. Scream 2 is I'm gonna blame the
I'm gonna
movies, and
blame the
Scream 4 is
movies.
probably I wanna be a star or something to that effect.
I want to be an influencer.
Oh my God. I want Jill from Scream 4 to marry me. Emma Roberts, hit me up. One of my favorite parts, I don't care, what are we talking about now? One of my favorite parts in any horror movie was when she thinks she's won, right? And she just runs around that house injuring herself.
Being herself. Yeah.
Like Emma Roberts is so cool. Where's she been all my fucking life? So
It's
good.
so funny.
Oh
I
my
love that
God.
part.
Okay, I'm ready. I like that Scream came up and our one opportunity to just talk about Scream, we talked about every other movie. All right, three,
All
two,
right.
one, go.
Can I be the helpless victim? Okay, let's see. No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
I mean, the
By the
postmodernism is
mid-90s, the
thick,
genre
and I
was
love it.
dying. It was stuck in place, drowning in endless sequels and been there, done that villains. In came old Master Craven and new screenwriter Kevin Williamson.
Hey,
Scream was
Kevin
the
got a shout
defibrillator
out.
that
Did you hear
brought the
that?
waning genre back to life. It featured Williamson's
Kevin got that
brilliantly
respect.
constructed and hilarious script that dismantled the
They didn't say
slasher
anything
while
else about
also
a script.
paying loving tribute to it. It's also a highly entertaining film, featuring a stellar cast of memorable characters, some inventive kills, and one, well, technically two, of the most iconic killers of the 90s.
If they'd watch Prom Night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Number 9, Get
All
Out.
right, pause. But I could just show me one clip of Randy, and I'm like, this is so fucking brilliant. This
Yeah.
kid. Oh my
If they
God.
watched Prom Night, they would have figured it out.
They really would have. And in that scene, he's being like menaced by the two killers. Like, God, it's fucking insanely good. I have never seen Get Out.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Usually I'm the one that says I haven't seen the thing.
I haven't seen it. I
Um,
watched Us. I do think that Jordan Peele's talented, but I never caught Get Out. Apologies.
I mean, uh, Us is of the three films he's released so far, I don't really like Us, but I
Thought
really
it was
quite
good.
liked Nope. Nope, I quite liked,
Okay.
and Get Out, I quite liked. Get Out is kind of awkward at points, kind of in its uh directing, just because you can tell this is a guy who came from TV. And I think that comes through sometimes, but it's like a guy who came from TV who you can tell has like real reverence for genre.
Oh, I can
And
tell.
specifically Get Out is him like he really has reverence for like Hitchcock when you watch it, and probably De Palma. And like I'm like on the one hand, part of me was just he would grow out of like the Hitchcock shit just because like I'm sick of people that are influenced by Hitchcock. Um, I but I don't know. He's got so much heart to it, and I also think what he's doing is like he actually has reverence for the elements of those films that he likes that make them interesting, rather than from a purely like mechanical viewpoint. So like on the one level, I'm like I'm sick of like movies that are kind of designed to be like YouTube explained, like 20-minute Get Out ending explained. I'm like and it's kind of this is a movie that's kind of ripe for it because he deliberately like litters it with these kind of on the nose puzzle pieces to kind of get you to that like you feel smart because you put everything together. But I also
Right.
genuinely like what he's doing at the same time. Like I like how like sardonic this is. I like how it finds this nice sweet spot between what Daniel Kaluuya is experiencing is like actually just fucked up, but it's also kind of hilarious in a really morbid way. Like the whole premise itself is like ludicrous, but in a really awesome way, I think. So I think it's like proof that he's like someone who has a lot of talent, but I want to see them work it out a little bit more. And I actually think with Nope he really started to, because that feels like a much more individual, personal project that kind of still engages with the same themes, the same interests, the same. Um, do I think it's like one of the top 10 horror movies of all time? I don't really think so, but that's just because I'm old fashioned, and so all my favorites are from like before 1990.
Well,
But
having not seen Get Out, um, but judging by its impact, it hit the horror community. It hit film in a pretty significant way. Um, Can you just lose Hereditary and just keep Get Out instead? Can
Yeah,
we just
I
have
was gonna
one?
say, like, I said I'd prefer Robert Eggers to Ari Aster, and I do, but I neglected to mention Peel, and part of that was because for a while I just didn't fuck with Us, and so I was kind of like not sure. I was like, oh, maybe
I liked it.
I kind of overrated it. I might be underrating it. It's entirely possible. I haven't seen it in a while, but
You see, it's the only one I've seen. I should check out Nope and Get Out. I know, but
Nope is really sick. Like I had a great time. I was surprised by how much I liked that.
all right, I'll
But
definitely check it out.
he's
Um,
I choose him over a lot of his competition basically in horror these
it,
days because I think he's got the right attitude.
like on a superficial level, yeah, it's hard for me to say that Get Out is better than what we just saw, Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Scream. Like it's hard for me to
Yeah, yeah. So
entertain that notion.
I'm taking the ranking with a grain of salt. So and
Yeah,
just saying like no, it actually is a good film. Like I'm kind of a hard ass on a lot of new horror movies, but I
I think if
actually
you're
do
gonna
like
have a
Get
new
Out.
one, this is probably the one to pick. And I'm saying that as
Yeah,
someone who hasn't seen it, but I can
and the
tell
cast
the
is fantastic, by the way.
it's got
Kaluuya's
Catherine Keener in it
amazing.
too, right?
She's like the creepiest one, actually.
She's an amazing actor who like that never has gotten enough credit in my opinion. Step aside
Yeah,
Toni Collette. Like
yeah,
Catherine Keener has been
exactly.
killing it for decades now.
She's also so hot in it.
You're the first person I've ever heard say that about Catherine Keener, but you know what? Good for her. And good for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's hear about Get
Three,
Out.
3, 2, 1, go.
Jordan Peele has established himself as the leading name in socially conscious horror, and Get Out confidently established his unique voice. Featuring Peele's Oscar-winning screenplay, Get Out speaks on many topical themes, including race relations in America.
I know what you're thinking.
What?
Come on, I get it. White family, black servants. It's a total cliche.
I wasn't gonna take you there.
Well, you didn't have to, believe me.
It earned widespread acclaim for its seamless blending of horror, comedy, and social critique. And it features a highly original story involving weird in-laws and brain transplants. The movie is deep and smart enough that it could be studied in academia, but it's also highly entertaining with sharp bouts of humor and some exceptional performances, particularly from the Oscar-nominated Daniel Kaluuya. There's simply
Did you know that
nothing
none of
else
these other
like it.
films
They know
are
I'm
deep
black.
or smart?
Yeah, that again, this movie kind of makes it a little
Number
easy on
8,
the viewer.
Halloween.
Halloween.
There you go.
I like it a lot. Black Christmas is better.
I can respect that. I prefer Halloween, I think, but I respect that. At various points in my life, I've agreed with you. Um,
At various points in your life.
I alternate a lot. Like Halloween, I used to not think much of. I used to think it was like
Oh,
lower
I
mid.
thought you were speaking in general. I thought you were like at various points in my life I have agreed with you. This is one of those various
No,
points.
no. Like Halloween, my opinion has risen and fallen and risen again.
Halloween's great,
I
but it normally
I
does get like all the credit for being the first traditional slasher movie. But Black Christmas was first, and then Black Christmas was
yeah.
also so much better. And Laurie Strode to me is not a memorable character. Donald Pleasance, very
Uh,
memorable character. But Black Christmas, Olivia Hussey, Cara Dulea, and
Yeah, they
Margot
have a more
Kidder,
dynamic cast.
like
Definitely
Margot
a more dynamic
specifically,
cast.
like Margot created an archetype as like the drunk kind of like rebellious best friend archetype who has to die. Like I don't know. I like Black Christmas did a lot of heavy lifting that gets overlooked, and Bob Clark did incredible with the direction. And I'm more scared of Billy. I'm more scared of this creepy eyeball I see through the doorway. I'm scared of his fucking weird ass creepy perv voice on the phone that even freaks out my girl Margot Kidder.
I feel that, but I don't know. I I love Carpenter,
Mhm.
and something clicked when I watched this actually before we talked about H2O, and I realized
Which is
like
better? H2O is so much better though.
no, it's not. Fuck
Yes, it
off.
is.
Um, I realize how kind of the mechanical thing people identify in this. But I've seen people that are like, "Oh, I like Carpenter, but this one's just kind of so mechanical. It's kind of just going through the processes and everything." I'm like, "That's
Yeah.
that's everything Carpenter made. He's like he's a director who's interested in schematics and
I will say that I've never been more violated by a POV shot than in the opening of Halloween because,
yeah,
like, what I like most about that style of composition, which he does a few times, POV of Michael Myers, is that Michael Myers is this void that, like, you can't relate to. He is a void. He's a fucking black pit. He's a Nietzschean nightmare. And by putting
yeah,
you in his POV, you are assuming his psychology, which there isn't one. So it's the most uncomfortable place to be in. I think Carpenter
yeah.
knocked the composition out of the
I,
park, to be honest.
I think this is his most Lovecraft movie.
Yeah.
I've compared it to the Dunwich Horror a
Yeah,
lot.
you have, yeah.
Um,
Which
and
H2O just gets rid of entirely.
yeah, exactly. Michael's just some dude. Whereas like here, Michael is the practically literal son of Yog Sothoth in space. Like
Okay,
I
I
would
get it.
not be
I get it.
surprised I wouldn't be surprised if they have a scene where it's just like, yeah, Michael was born from an elder god in space. Like,
All right. Halloween 1978 has all this depth and compositional value and stuff, but Halloween H2O has Michelle Williams in it. It wins.
I heard of her after seeing the hit movie, The Fablemans. Has she done other work?
Let me tell you about it. Dawson's Creek. Go check it out, everybody. It's better than anything listed here. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Is there anything about Halloween that isn't iconic? The setting was enormously
I
influential,
would say
bringing
this
the
walk
slasher
across the
to
street isn't
suburban
that
America.
iconic.
The music is fantastic,
It's
complete
more
with one of the
iconic in the
most
movie
famous
because you hear
themes in movie
the
history. The
soundtrack.
cinematography was
But when you're
groundbreaking,
just
featuring
watching
point
it
of
in
view
a
shots
vacuum
and the
muted, it's
use of
just
If I
spoof
Laurie
edited
walking
it, I
across the
wouldn't have had that as my
because
iconic moment.
with the music you realize that she is being watched at that moment is the
The
point. But
characters are
watching it
memorable
there, she's
and
just
unforgettable,
walking.
including Dr. Loomis, Michael
I
Myers,
love that
and
part
one of
where
the
Loomis
greatest
is
final
just
girls in
insanely
horror, Laurie
racist.
Strode. It introduced John Carpenter to the mainstream, and he would later craft other masterpieces
The
like
thing
The
is
Thing.
better. The thing
Finally,
is
it
better.
pioneered all the tropes that the slasher would eventually become famous
Vampires is
for. No
better.
one had seen anything like Halloween, and it established the
Potentially.
basic horror template
I don't
that
know
is
if I'd
still
agree,
being
but I
copied
I
respect
like the
today.
part where
it.
I
James
spent
Woods is just
8 years
extremely
trying to reach
homophobic.
him.
Oh
And
wait,
then
that's the
in
whole
'07
movie.
tried to keep him locked up because I realized that what was
My
living
favorite part of
behind
Halloween
that
2 is
boy's
when
eyes was
Loomis
purely and
just like
simply
fucking kills a
evil.
child
Number
because he thinks
7,
it's Michael.
Jaws.
Oh, yeah.
And like he
Halloween
literally
2 is
causes a
badass.
child. Yeah, he gets a
Wait,
child
wasn't
to get run over and exploded, and it's the kid Laurie has a crush on. And
wait,
then he's
who was the director of Halloween 2? Wasn't it? No, that was Rick Rosenthal.
yeah, but Carpenter kind of had a heavy hand in its production, but he definitely I
Oh,
wouldn't go as far as he ghost directed it, but I would go as far as he had a heavy hand in it.
yeah, well, the director of H2O, his name was Steve Miner. He also made Friday the 13th Part 2 and Part 3, but more importantly, he directed the very first episode of Dawson's Creek. So have at
Dawson's
that.
Creek, yeah.
That's a
So
real master. That's how he knows Michelle Williams. Have you heard of her? She's great. We're at number 7 now, Jaws.
Jaws. I heard of this Spielberg guy once. I don't have much to
Wait, does he
say
have a new
about him.
movie? Is it what's his new movie called?
The 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 Flubbleman.
Who's the star of that? Oh, Michelle Williams, my wife. Okay, cool. Anyways,
Um,
Jaws. I don't. Jaws is fine, but I wish people wouldn't keep calling it a horror movie. It feels weird to go through like,
yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. I guess it is because I hate thriller as a descriptor, so I don't know
How
what
about
else I would
adventure?
call.
How about action fucking adventure? It's
Yeah,
about three
sure,
dudes who go
sure.
on a fishing trip.
On the other hand, like I feel like I'm like maybe I'm just being like too limiting because it mostly takes place during the day, despite like what's happening being like kind of objectively horrifying. So I don't know.
Yeah, but the compositional qualities now make no sense. Okay, compare what I just said about how violating and intrusive John Carpenter's
Well,
POV shots of Michael were, and now, Steven, why am I in the POV of a fucking
it'll be
shark right now? What do you want me to think? I'm a shark.
it and
Like it fails on film grammar. Like what am I supposed to think?
Hey, well, this is the interesting thing about Spielberg is that like we talked about is that on the one level he is like utterly failing at film grammar. On another level, this is like one of the most tight movies ever made. I'm not a big fan of it either. I kind of am like I like it, but more for like
I like it.
like academic reasons. Like I'm interested in it as like an object, but like I don't,
I
I
do
don't
like it.
respond. Yeah, but it's interesting in the way that kind of even the least interesting Spielberg movie is kind of inherently interesting. It's like unavoidable. It's just like
It's just
the
another thing
weirdest
that feels
shit.
kind of old-fashioned even for its time. Like when did Texas Chainsaw come out?
The year before,
What the fuck? What the
literally a year
fuck?
before. And then
Like,
these two men finally met, and one of them destroyed the other one's career forever by accident.
oh my God. This film feels so, I don't know. It doesn't belong in a list like this because it's sticking out like a sore
Well,
thumb when you put it up
it,
against Suspiria.
if only because like even if I think it's like great as an aesthetic object and I it's like reasons for being popular have nothing to really do with the horror aspect. It has to do with it being a
No,
blockbuster.
no.
So I don't know.
And I've seen people try to credit like Steven Spielberg with inventing the slasher movie with
Extra
Jaws, and
movie.
I just want to slap the fuck out of those
Yeah,
idiots.
that's ridiculous.
That's absurd. If I can say something nice, Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss are trying
So
so
good.
hard. So
I
hard.
think they're legitimately great. And I think
I
if I
think they
watch
are
this again,
legitimately great. I think that
I
Roy
would
hates
probably say it
being
kicks
here.
ass. Oh yeah, probably. But
But he
I
came
think
back
if
for
I
Jaws
watched it
too, so fuck him.
I think if I watch it again, I would say it probably kicks ass, but I don't know. Just more for the joy of watching it, watching the way the camera moves, watching the way,
The
like
the reason
that
I'm being
monologue
so
is
harsh
delivered.
is because of where it is. It's because of the format that I'm seeing the
Yeah,
movie in. Like on its
yeah.
own, I would say Jaws is probably good, but when I'm seeing it at number 7 on the top 20 greatest horror films of all time, above two of my personal favorite films ever made, like fuck you, Steven. Steven, what am I supposed to be scared of? Is it even metaphorical? No. It's a fucking shark. It means
I mean,
nothing.
it's sort of, no, I wouldn't go that far. It's kind of just the same theme he usually does in these movies, which is like man versus nature in the most like generic
No.
sense of the. It's a common theme in his work. I'm not saying it's
But that's
profound.
the
I'm just
lamest
saying,
theme.
yeah,
I
well, I'm not
honestly
saying
think
it's
that Steven is just
profound.
like, it's a fucking shark. Scary.
I don't
Fuck you,
know.
Steven.
If only because the world not having control over nature is a relatively common theme in his work, but I don't think it's particularly profound here. I think that political undertones are more interesting. Um, but
Like when they
and even then,
when they don't close down the beach.
yeah, even that's more interesting, and I don't know how fleshed out it is based on my
It's
memory.
not.
Yeah,
It's not.
but regardless, let's continue.
All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Later in his career, Steven Spielberg would establish
Are we
himself
gonna get
as a
sued for
family-friendly
showing this
director
footage
who
from
wowed through
WatchMojo? Is
warm comfort and
WatchMojo
an
gonna be like, you
unbound
reposted our
imagination.
video?
Jaws is, well, it
Um,
isn't very
no.
family-friendly, to say the least.
I'm sure a
Okay.
million people react to these.
We gotta do thumbnails like
The sharks took the rest during the 29th, 1945.
Okay, out of
A
context, I
hungry
can't
shark
understand a fucking
terrorizes the
word you're
beaches of
mumbling,
Amity
Robert
Island,
Shaw.
and lots of people get eaten
The
in
fuck was
very
that?
violent and horrific ways. The movie's style remains impeccable to this day,
Like this
featuring the
POV
classic
shot, like,
underwater point
I'm
of
a
view shots,
shark.
John Williams'
Don't you feel like a
recognizable
shark
score,
now, Zach?
and a
No,
Yeah, I
surprisingly
bet it
but
makes you
there's
feel
no
realistic
pretty bad
look.
about
Jaws
question.
yourself.
birthed the
I
summer
bet it makes you feel
blockbuster
pretty
and
shitty about yourself to
established
know
Am
you're
I
a
Spielberg
supposed to
shark.
as
think
a
that the
young
shark thinks
filmmaker
she's
of
hot?
rare talent
Like, what am I
and
supposed to
ambition.
think?
$10,000 for me by myself.
Yeah, you thought you
It's
were having a good
For that, you
day.
get the head,
What if you were a
the
shark, Zach?
tail,
What would you
the
say
whole
I
then?
have
damn
such
thing.
Number
fundamental
6,
problem
The
with it.
Silence
Ah,
of the
dude, this is overrated.
Silence of the Lambs?
Yeah, this is overrated.
I love it. It's great.
Lambs.
It's overrated.
I as as the tranny here, I get to say that awesome movie.
I
No,
think that what Jonathan Demme did was he took an exploitation film and just slightly elevated it. That's all it is.
I'm not even sure how much he elevated it, just because this is a crazy movie.
Well,
It's
maybe he
not
didn't,
very.
but Jodie Foster did. I think Anthony Hopkins gives a terrible performance. I think Jodie Foster is beyond miraculous in the film.
I
Um,
oh, I have so much fun with this. I love how over the top he is. It's great.
okay.
Uh,
That makes
they
sense why
really
you like
hammer
Jaws so much.
they hammered home more in Ridley Scott's Hannibal, where
Now,
the dude
Hannibal
becomes.
is a great film.
I mean, I love that movie. I do. I prefer Silence of the Lambs, but more for personal reasons. I love how sadistic and fucked
I
up
prefer the
Hannibal is.
Mads Mikkelsen television show, actually.
Oh, I mean, it's fantastic, but
Yeah.
I'm just really personally fond of Foster's performance,
I
and
think that this
I,
is
l-
just overrated.
I don't
I
know.
think that had this movie not swept the Oscars, not too many people would be talking about it anymore.
Maybe, but in that case, I would just call it extremely underappreciated, like if that was its fate, because I think the direction from Demi is really fantastic. It's a really beautifully directed film, I think. I love the way the camera moves. I love the way it looks
Well,
at people.
well, that's how he elevated it.
I love when he's like doing like conducting, like orchestra conducting while he's got a fucking dude's face on his face. It's
Oh,
so
come
silly.
on.
Well, he just ate or no, it's that he just ate the dude's ear and he's like listening to the music. It's like, bro, you're so silly. I love you.
Oh my God, it
Ha-
sucks. Now I
Hannibal
think it
Lecter is
sucks.
my favorite. Hannibal Lecter is my favorite funny guy. He's
But here's the thing. I think Anthony Hopkins thinks he's doing a pretty straight performance.
I don't think he cares.
I don't know. I
I
don't care. I think this movie has gotten way too much credit. And the fact that it's
maybe,
like
but
number
I'm quite
6 on
fond
the
of it.
greatest horror movies ever is just fucking laughable.
I don't know. This one I actually am like, no, that's fair. I would do it, but
I would never do it.
Comes to horror, it doesn't get much more prestigious than The Silence of the Lambs.
See, listen to
This
the way they're
is a
talking about it.
psychological film that had far
It's an
higher ambitions
exploitation
than
movie
mere
with a bow on
entertainment.
it.
The movie is out of this world
I
good,
do
and
hate
as of
when they're like,
2022,
oh, it's
it
not a
is the
horror
latest
movie,
and
it's just
only one of
psychological
3 to
thriller. I'm
earn the
like, shut the
big
fuck
5
up.
Academy
I hate
Awards: Best Picture,
like
Director,
it's just a horror
Actor,
movie.
Actress,
It's
and
fine.
Screenplay.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
The story gets under the skin like nothing had
Chianti.
before, portraying Hannibal Lecter as a fiercely intelligent and verbose villain rather than a silent stalker of teenagers. And speaking of Hannibal
Oh,
Lecter, he is
Manhunter's better.
undeniably
What am
one
I
of the greatest
saying?
villains in
Manhunter's
movie
the
history,
best.
a legacy that's aided by stellar dialogue and
Michael
a
Mann
Michael
flawless
Mann is
supremacy.
performance
like
from Anthony Hopkins.
Michael Mann
Still
is
wake up
a
sometimes, don't
hero
you?
of mine, but
You wake up in the
I don't
dark.
know. They're on
No,
par.
Manhunter is
Hear
so
the
much
screaming of
better.
the lamb.
I mean, I think Miami Vice is better
Number
than
5, Alien.
any thing, but
Damn. They're just
I
putting any
keep
movie on here
winning.
now.
I keep winning.
They're just putting any movie on here now.
Um, sorry, this one's just in my DNA.
You just have so much in common with WatchMojo.
Yeah, I'm the writer for WatchMojo.
I like
Um,
Alien, but I find it very interesting that the closer we get to number 1, the less horror I actually find the list to be.
I mean, this is a pretty, I don't know, cut and dry slasher to me.
Cut and dry slasher? I don't know. The last couple movies have been like, give me
Yeah,
my bad.
it's definitely that thing where they're like, no, these are like the smart ones, which is why we're gonna get
Yeah,
The
that I
Shining
think that
soon.
that's what I mean, but it's not smart.
But I love Alien.
Oh, let
Um,
me dodge a bullet real quick and say that I also love Alien. And I'm
I
just
think
being
we both
difficult.
agree that it was very formative for us, but
Yeah. I think we both agree that the sequel, Aliens by James Cameron, is a lot better.
No, but I do
Oh
love
my
that
God, you're
film quite a lot.
still lying. You're still lying. This is ridiculous at this point.
Um, Weaver's incredible. Really, I like everyone in this movie.
Everyone,
Um, everyone.
you know who the
Um,
weakest link in this movie is?
who?
Ridley Scott.
No, Ridley's great. You were just singing his praises for Hannibal.
But now I'm
Um,
choosing violence because chaos is a ladder. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I love this movie. I just feel like being mean to it.
no, it's fair. It's fun being mean.
It's a good
It's
movie. It's just I don't know.
I don't know. It fits my sensibilities a lot, I guess.
I
But
guess I
it's
just feel
definitely
elitist right now because like I'm seeing like, unchallenged, uninteresting to me choices.
uh-huh.
I mean, we just went through Jaws, Silence of the Lambs, and Alien. Like, oh,
Yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate pairing. And
Get Out was
um
refreshing now that I think about it. I'm happy that was here now.
the I mean it's definitely like my least interesting favorite movie, I think, but I do love it.
I think that
For
Cameron made it more interesting, so
but I think they're going for extremely different things. Do you like Prometheus?
yeah. What?
I love Prometheus.
I like Prometheus, yeah.
And I also like Alien Covenant just because it's so stupidly
I don't
sadistic.
like Covenant, but I love Resurrection. I actually love Resurrection.
Yeah, Resurrection's fun. I think it's good. I think it's underrated.
Yeah, it's definitely underrated. The best ones are the first two. Um,
Mhm.
but
I even
sure.
shoot for Alien 3 occasionally, but it's
I
definitely
hate
the
Alien
weakest link.
3. I don't care what cut I'm told to
Yeah.
watch. All the cuts are bad. But that's
I
the only
like
bad
parts of
Alien
it.
movie is Alien 3 and then Covenant sometimes is really bad.
Hmm.
Mm. But just like you like watching Anthony Hopkins be crazy and silly in Silence of the Lambs, I love watching Michael Fassbender be crazy and silly in Covenant. So
Yeah, I'll do the fingering.
David is my Hannibal Lecter.
I do. I watched that with a friend while he was like I watched it with him in theaters, and then about like a year and a half ago we watched it again, and I think he was like half awake and not feeling it, and it's just like the most depressing movie, and David is so obscenely evil to the point that the whole end of the movie is he just kills everybody. He
Yeah.
but
I love that they
but
kill
Alien
Numi, like the star Numi from the fucking first movie, like off camera,
off
basically.
screen, and then the
What
new
the
main character also dies.
I thought she was really compelling in Prometheus and gave off a certain Sigourney Weaver vibe. I'm like, oh, that
Yeah, she's really
fuck.
interesting.
But
Um,
okay, so like the
but
next
Alien,
four though, like what do you think the next four will be? I think it's become deeply predictable at this point, this list.
the, number four.
Yeah, what do you think
I'm standing by. We're gonna see the Shining and Psycho. That's pretty much
The Shining,
unavoidable.
Psycho, and then the other two.
Mm,
What big one haven't they
mm.
said yet?
That's what I'm trying to think. The Exorcist,
The
probably.
Exorcist, and then we're missing one more.
Hmm. I feel like I'm forgetting something so obvious.
Well, okay, Blair Witch. But would
Oh
Blair Witch
yeah,
crack the top five?
possibly, possibly.
I love Blair Witch. I'd be okay with it. It'd at least be
Yeah, me
refreshing
too. I
again.
adore that movie. Oh, let's go.
Three, two, one, go.
This movie sounds like a disaster. We can imagine
It
the pitch
does.
meeting now. It's like Halloween, only set in space and featuring an alien instead of a serial killer. Every crappy B movie sounds like that.
What?
It just goes to prove that great movies are made in the execution, not the
What's so
idea.
bad about being a fucking B movie? Like half the movies you've
Yeah,
mentioned
I agree
are.
with that.
How?
I
How do we
agree.
do it?
I agree. That's kind of
Under the
shitty.
command of Ridley Scott, Alien was a triumph. It still looks amazing to this day, featuring some exquisite production design, a gorgeous art style, and a convincing alien creature courtesy of H.R. Giger. It's also a perfectly acted film, and
John
it
Hurt was
contains some of
great.
the most memorable sequences in the history of horror. Chest burster, anyone? Space-based horror does not get much better than this.
This is Ripley, last survivor of the Nostromo. Signing off.
At least she
Number
got to
4,
act in the
The
second
Shining.
film. Do you like The Shining?
The fucking Shining, yeah. Unfortunately, for better and for worse, like Alien, I stand by Kubrick. That's like the one hump I will never get over. I'll never really get out of
Well, at the
being
risk
into
of pissing off anyone else who I may not have irritated yet, I don't think The Shining is a good horror movie.
Kubrick.
Because I don't think
I
it is a horror movie. Like I respect Kubrick enough to go, he seldom makes mistakes. And there are so many things that are counterintuitive to the horror movie in The Shining that it's like maybe it's not one. And
I don't
maybe
know.
maybe we shouldn't spend thousands of hours hyper analyzing every fragment of this film.
I mean, I hate that shit. I feel like its general interests are definitely like multiple. Like, there's a lot of parts of that's getting into, but I
Ultimately, my
also
criticism is Brian De Palma's criticism. I read a piece from him where he said that The Shining is a horror movie made by someone who obviously despises the genre that he's working within. And
I don't
I
know if I
get that
agree.
vibe. I get that
I
vibe.
don't know if I agree. Because the whole story of its making is that he was enamored with the book. Yeah, because he was given like a stack of fucking books he had to, and they were like, you got to pick something to adapt, otherwise we're not making a movie. And he would like toss out like a book, like 5 books a day because he got bored out of them within like the first 20 pages. And The Shining was the first one he actually read all the way through and liked it. And so he decided he wanted to make it. That's how he came
Well,
to it. Stanley Kubrick is a more empathetic person than Stephen King. I
I think The
feel
Shining
worse.
is one of the 10 most overrated films of all time.
I think Nicholson's Jack is way more empathetic than or at least more human than the one that King wanted, and the reason why King hates this movie. I think it says
Sure,
a
but
lot about
also
King.
I find it bizarre calling Kubrick empathetic
I think he is.
based on the
Because like at
treatment of
least
his main actress.
I don't even get me started on how
I'm getting you started. What do you think?
overblown. I think, as far
I
as
don't
I can
care if
tell,
it's
based on the
overblown.
runtime,
Like,
I think he
mistreatment
was
is
they were all
mistreatment.
just being normal, and I think he was probably being worse than Nicholson. I even
That
she
doesn't
had.
excuse any behavior that he's
I
worse
mean,
to
I don't
someone
think there
else.
really was any behavior. I think he just asked her to keep doing the shot until it got right. I don't know,
If I was at
but
work and my boss kept telling me to flip the fucking burger or whatever menial job I end up doing, I'd be pretty upset.
I don't know. I
I'd be like,
don't
motherfucker,
qualify it
what
as
was wrong
abuse
with the previous
personally.
300 times?
I mean, like, I think it's silly. I don't think it was, I'm not one of those people that's just like, no, it was absolutely necessary. They did that. Like, I think he was probably fine on like the first shot of Tom Cruise walking through that door in Eyes Wide Shut. I
Oh,
don't
oh,
think he needed to
I
do it.
want him to bully Tom Cruise until he cries.
I
It's
know, but I'm just
different.
saying, like, I'm sure the first version of that shot was fine. So I think it's very over the top that he did that. I think he was just way too anal. But I don't qualify it as like abuse
Oh no, it's
personally. I'm
fine.
canceling myself.
I'm getting
I'm
edgier
canceling
and
myself.
edgier. Chaos is a ladder, and I've now chosen to go after all J horror fans and Stanley Kubrick.
No, it's fine. Nonetheless, I'm interested in the material. I like that he's like bold enough to just be like, no, Jack was just like a hateful person. He always was. It's like, fuck you. I don't feel bad for him just because he's, got a problem. And in that way, I think it's more like, I don't know, honest than like King trying to make endless excuses so that you feel worse for Jack than anyone else.
Yeah,
And
but
it's like,
you could also argue that Kubrick's characters are entirely too thin.
No, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of nuance to like Shelley's performance, and definitely to Nicholson's. Despite how funny he is, I think he's like absolutely hysterical in that
Oh, he's
movie.
hilarious. He's hilarious.
I love the part. I think I retweeted, someone posted the clip recently where his son Danny described something really fucked up, and then she's like, Danny, that's so fucked up. And he's like, no, mom, I saw it on television. He's like, you hear that, Wendy? He saw it on the television. It's like the most like, I'm like, bro, he's already planning how he's gonna decapitate this kid. He's like,
He's so good.
he's not even at the hotel yet, and he feels nothing but hate for this small child.
Yeah, that he's
Um,
just abusing.
it's such a funny movie. Like
Yeah, it's
legitimately
crazy.
scary,
You haven't
I
really
think.
described it in horrific terms, though, so I really don't think it's a
I
horror
think it's
movie.
pretty spooky. I think it's pretty scary. I just think it's also funny, and I think that
I
makes
think that
sense
when it
because I
does
think
get
like
like straight up spooky, Kubrick's calling attention to the artifice of his own genre. Like, remember when Shelley Duvall runs into that room and it looks like it's from the Haunted Mansion in Disney with like the cobwebs and the skeletons? I think that Kubrick is like,
yeah.
I don't give a fuck about this genre. I don't care.
No, no, I think he cares.
Okay,
I'm
if he
convinced.
cares,
I mean,
then that was a failure. If he cares, then he failed with that shot.
I would accept that. I would accept that.
Okay. Okay.
I
Three,
would
two,
accept
one.
that.
3, 2, 1, go.
There's just no going wrong with Stanley Kubrick. Adapted from Stephen King's classic novel, The Shining tells the story of the Torrance family, who find themselves isolated in a mountain hotel over the winter. Much of the drama is centered around Jack Torrance, who slowly descends into
He's just
madness
so
and
funny.
eventually attempts to kill his wife and child.
Hi, Lloyd.
I saw this in theaters like 6 years ago, and
A little
all of
slow
us in our
tonight,
group
isn't it?
completely fucking forgot the part where he just keeps saying the N-word. Um,
Yes, it is, Mr.
we
Torrance.
all just
Jack
completely
Nicholson
forgot
is
that part.
typically sublime in the role and convincingly depicts Jack's downward spiral.
Like he is
Kubrick is
evil.
just as magical behind the camera, embodying his movie with tantalizing ambiguity, intriguing themes, and some outstanding camera work. The Shining is an icon of pop culture and one of the most famous horror movies ever made. A perfect marriage of mainstream appeal and artful filmmaking.
But you are the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker.
Number 3, Dracula.
What? Isabelle, this is bullshit.
I keep winning.
Your taste is identical to WatchMojo's. This is not. No, okay. Honestly, though, Todd Browning was asleep behind the wheel. Like, it's documented that he was hardly there most of the time. He was going through a bender. They were filming another Dracula at the same exact time from the same studio, but it was for the Spanish-speaking version.
Yeah, the
And that
Spanish
that one is
version.
actually a lot more interesting. It just doesn't have Bela, and I love Bela. Bela woke
He's
up and was ready for work, okay? He was the only one.
he is my favorite actor of all time, I think. I
He's great in this film. It's just Todd
he
Browning is not there. He's not
Oh,
here with
I
me.
disagree. I don't know. I mean, I'll give it to you. It's more like austere than his silent era works, like West of Zanzibar, The
I would
Show,
I
or
would say
what
that
have you.
Freaks is on another level.
I like this a lot more than Freaks, but I do love Freaks. I don't know. It's austere, but that kind of just makes me like it more because it's so, I don't know. I like the directness of it. I like how it's just nothing unnecessary in a weird, weird way. But that's
Number
just me.
three. Number three.
Yeah, I would say
Is
it.
this
I
really
would
like
say that.
like 20 times better than Frankenstein?
Oh, I think so for sure.
I feel James Whale was there. And you saw like expressionism, you saw like his weird little English roots in it. Dracula, I don't see any Todd Browning in it at all.
I think it does. It's definitely less there. I think in part because it's adapted material, but I think you get some of his usual, you know, freaks and monsters and uh the this kind of love that is poisoned and not really real or kind of toxic. I feel is common themes in his work, but I don't know.
You're right about
Lugosi
whoever it
transports
was
me.
that played Renfro. Renfro? What's his name?
Renfield.
Renfield.
Yeah,
So not
I'm
Brad
neglecting
Renfro,
to
the child
remember.
actor. Good.
Rat,
Uh,
rats,
yeah,
delicious
he's so
rat.
good. I
Yeah,
and like those two guys, Bela and Renfield, they woke up for work. It'd be cool if the
they
director did
were
the same
on
thing.
a goddamn mission from God when they did that movie. I saw it in theaters on Halloween, and I got really pissed because people in the theaters were laughing every time they did a close up of Lugosi, and I was like, "This is like the most like haunting image I've ever fucking seen." I don't know. I love it.
Oh no, Lugosi was great.
This is like one
He's
like
great.
I don't think you can enjoy this ironically. Like I don't get enjoying Lugosi ironically, you know? Like I just don't understand that. It
Well,
just doesn't make sense to
I
me.
mean, his Ed Wood phase. I wish I was at Bela Lugosi's funeral, which sounds really
Yeah.
morbid, but like all of the big names were there from 30s horror, and one of my favorite anecdotes ever is like, he was buried in his Dracula cloak,
Yeah.
and Peter Lorre was at the funeral, and I can only imagine. I can't do a Peter Lorre impression, but I think he turned
Not
to
me.
like Harloff or whoever was next to him, and he was like, "Maybe we should drive a stake through his heart and make sure." I love Bela. Nothing but respect for Bela. But
I love that man.
Todd, who I do like, it's hard for me to even credit this to him out of like the stories I've read about the production and how he really, really was not available much.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with most of that. And I always saw a lot of his usual kind of decision making processes in it, but that might just be me projecting. But I don't know. I
If
think
you're
it's like a
ever able to
beautiful.
watch the movie they made simultaneously to this one, like the English speaking version got the daytime shoot, and then the Spanish speaking version got the nighttime shoot with a different director, and that director was really, really into Murnau. So
Hmm.
you don't have Bela, but you have like the same sets, the same exact sets, and like the same script essentially, but with a more kind of expressionist filmmaking style. It's actually a bit more
Interesting.
interesting to look at. But I am
Interesting.
ready whenever you
Yeah.
are. Three, two,
Me too.
one, go.
Adapted from Bram Stoker's novel, Dracula is also the
Oh yeah,
best,
this is the
or
other
at
thing. I love
least the
that
most
it's
famous. The film is
directed like a
terrifically directed
silent
by
film,
Todd Browning, and
just
Bela
with
Lugosi
Yeah,
crafted
audio,
one of the most
yeah.
celebrated
because
villains
it
in
feels
movie
I
like a
history.
silent film.
Aren't you
I
drinking?
love the early sound
I
films like
never
these
drink.
from the big
Why?
silent masters
His
like
performance is
Vampire and
nothing short of
a lot of the
legendary, and
gangster
he
movies still had a
created the
silent
archetypal
feel.
vampire that would be
Yeah, it's
copied for
because he said
years,
he thought
even
that
decades to
music and
come. The
dialogue
legacy of
overlapping would be
Dracula simply
confusing for the
cannot be
audiences, so he
overstated.
opted
It
to have
had a
no
profound
music. I know
impact not
music
only on
versions
the history
exist
of
of it, but
film,
I've
but
never seen
on
them, and I
Western pop
frankly don't
culture.
want to.
Everyone
No,
It
I
just
wouldn't
feels
discovered
either.
wrong.
both the movie
It just
and
this is
Lugosi's
a movie
portrayal of
that's
its
so
titular
obviously
monster.
designed to
Like a
be viewed
vampire
with no
itself,
music.
the movie lives on, and it may never fade from the cultural conversation.
To die, to be really dead, that must be glorious.
Number 2, The
Damn.
Exorcist.
I don't like The Exorcist.
Yeah, I got nothing to say.
All right, you ready?
Yeah,
Three, two, one, go.
This is perhaps the greatest example of a
I just
movie
got
undergoing
nothing.
a
I don't.
critical
It's
reevaluation.
all right.
The content
I
was
think we slaughtered The
extraordinarily controversial at the
Exorcist.
time, and the film received a mixed
I've
critical
kind of.
reception. And then,
It's
slowly
pushing
but
11
surely,
o'clock.
people
I'm
started
like,
to view it
I
as the
don't have it in me to
masterpiece that
talk
it
about The
is.
Exorcist.
If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
That's much too vulgar display of power, Karis.
Your mother stuck
Where's
in
Reagan?
hell.
In here with us.
The
Linda
Exorcist
Blair
was
was born
nominated for
innocent.
10 Oscars and was the
It's
first
awful.
horror film to receive a nom for Best Picture. Essays were written about its religious themes and its place in movie
Essays were
history.
written about
Like a
every
demon,
movie that's ever
characters,
existed.
scenes,
What are you
and
talking
quotes
about?
possessed the public consciousness and have never left. It established horror as a legitimate genre that could contain ambitious themes and remarkable
I hate
filmmaking
commentary
along
like
with the
that.
typical frights. Basically,
Legitimate
the genre wouldn't
genre.
be what it is today without The Exorcist.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
You'd like that?
Intensely.
Before
I
we
hate the
continue,
Italian
be sure to
melodrama
subscribe
with
to
his
our channel
mom.
and
It's
ring
so
the bell to get
fucking.
notified about our latest videos.
I don't
You
know.
have the option to be
I used
notified
to
for
like it,
occasional
but
videos
I
or
was like
all of them.
16.
If you're on your phone,
We all
make sure
made
you
bad
go into your
decisions when
settings
we were
and switch on
16.
notifications.
We have one more to go.
Number 1, Psycho.
Oh,
Yeah, there was only one it could be.
okay. I'm not gonna argue with it. You want to put
I'm
Psycho at
on and
number
off.
one? Do it.
Yeah, might as well.
I
I like shitting on Hitchcock, and yet I quite like Psycho. So I don't know. I just like to bully Hitchcock because I hate people that kind of revere him, but I also think he made at least two of the greatest movies of all time. So I don't know.
to save us from any debate, I won't ask you which two those are, but I will
Three,
say
three, three.
still not gonna ask. Some Psycho's okay. I think that putting it at number one, and ultimately, I think putting Hitchcock at number one on anything now is more of a symbolic gesture than any actual sign of relevancy.
Yeah, because Psycho is, or sorry, Hitchcock has kind of just come to signify like an entire school of thought on how one
Exactly.
makes a film. And like Psycho's DNA is everywhere. I mean, even in the places you least expect it. Um, and I'm hard on Hitchcock a lot just because on some level I kind of like resist the mentality of how he makes movies. Like I kind of resist this idea of like film as a Swiss watch, like everything in
Yeah.
its perfect place. Which is why my favorite, at least two of my three favorite films of his, are the ones that are the most like out there, discordant, kind of fluid. Like it's The Birds. My favorite is The Birds, but I think that movie is just a fucking black hole of no answers and endless questions. And I think Psycho kind of gives everything to you. I'm also hard on him because I'm like, I always joke, I'm like, he read half a Wikipedia page on Freud and thinks he knows psychology. That's kind of underselling him, but it's also kind of accurate, I think. Like Rope drives me insane. Um, if I have to see another fucking movie where it's like, yeah, there's this sadomasochism and homosexuality, and you have a psychologist coming at the end of the movie to tell you what happens, and it's like I
Wait,
don't know, on some level that
and you like
on
Silence of the Lambs. Let me just get this
yeah,
straight.
yes, I guess on some level I find Psycho kind of easy, but then on another level, I think the actual possibilities that come out of it are much deeper than even Hitchcock might have known. Because I think
Yeah.
his kind of erotic fixations are relatively mundane. He's just a guy who likes a mean mommy GF who steps on him. You know, he's
I
not
mean,
that
like,
complicated.
its
He's
grasp of psychology, like people like to talk. I'm with you on this. People like to talk about how complex it is, but 1960, motherfucker, I got La Ventura and La Dolce Vita in that same year. You
yeah,
want to talk about good psychology in film? There it is. Psycho, yeah,
yeah. That's
it's not. It's a bit
just because
elementary.
he's like I if I just have to see another thing that's like there's a link between sex and death. I'm like, dude, you're fucking 60 years behind on this shit. I'm like, I'm
Yes,
sorry. I
and
I'm
I think
like,
he's always
you're
been that way.
this was old fashioned when it came out. Like, I don't know if
Yeah,
that, but on at the same, but then again, like that's why when I like when he really like leans into his perversions, like, or like also his nihilism, because I love The Birds because I think it's a profoundly nihilistic movie. Um, but I'm giving all this criticism of Psycho and Hitchcock, but it is well meaning because it's like I say all this, but like I like more of his movies than I dislike, and I
and
would put many of his movies as some of my favorites. I just kind of like I think resist what he's come to represent for people, especially people learning about film. And I think I the things I'm interested in a thing movie like Psycho are not necessarily what other people are interested in. So
oh,
I
I'm
don't
with
know.
you on it. And like, while I do think it is more a symbolic gesture than a sign of
Mm.
quality of putting his name at number one on these things, I I still understand the gesture itself.
Oh, I mean, I
Um,
think it's totally deserved. I'm
yeah.
not mad in any way, shape, or form, even if it was sincere, even if they were seriously saying like, I think this is just actually the scariest, best horror movie to ever be a horror movie. Like, I'm like, fair. I
I do
mean,
want to see a WatchMojo video called Top 20 Scariest Best Horror Movie to Ever Be a Horror Movie now.
yeah,
It's a good
but
title. But I don't know, thoughts on the list overall?
it's pretty much exactly what I expected. A few surprises. I think it's obvious they tried to cover their bases. I said they were going to put like at least one or two not not Western movies on there, and we got that. You know,
Yeah.
they really just tried to cover all their bases by doing primarily English language movies, like one Italian movie, one Japanese movie, a couple movies that came out in the last 5 years, and then all the classics that kind of sell t-shirts at Newberry Comics. It's kind of just the usual vibe. But I'm being critical, but like I'm like I can't really blame them because
I
I
mean,
feel like the
we went
mark
with
of
all these
horror.
modern horror movies. My biggest problem with WatchMojo lately has been its complete erasure of women behind the camera.
Yeah,
Like, there
yeah,
wasn't one movie made by a woman, right?
yeah.
And it feels like you could have swapped out Hereditary for I'd be happy with. I'm not saying all these movies are good or deserving. I just think there should be representation. Like you should have had
Mhm.
Jennifer's Body or American Psycho, The Babadook,
Oh, I love
fucking what's
American Psycho.
yeah, I mean, any one of those movies you could have traded out just to have something, like some sort of representation, or the
And
Invitation's one that I love to death. You know,
and and are you single, Zach? Just while you're on this tirade about why we have to have more women representation.
what do you mean, am I single?
I'm just making a joke. I'm saying like you're already making yourself look cool. Yeah, you're doing a good job. I'm like, let's keep this going. Let's keep this
Oh,
going.
I thought you were like fucking simp over here.
Yeah,
Fucking
this
simp.
yeah,
Fucking virgin
I'm
simp
vouching.
saying that American Psycho
Zach,
should
didn't
be
you
here.
say the cat from a fire the other day? Um,
Yeah,
and
a
you
couple
support
of them.
women's rights, and you support women's rights. No, I agree. I agree. It's kind of very Anglo, but
It's just you
I
had
also
20 chances. You had 20 fucking chances, and there's no way. Just get rid of Hereditary.
I'm not really surprised with this though, because the thing about horror is that like I feel like the most representative of the genre and what it tends to be are the ones that are kind of like overlooked the most or forgotten the most, you know?
This is actually, yeah, a
Like
pretty good indicator of like of what's actually not moving the horror dial, right? This is a pretty good
yeah,
indicator.
because like a lot of these movies are not influential or at least not
No.
representative of the aesthetics. That there's some exceptions. Like if they had put Black Christmas on here, like I think that's
Yeah.
in its own way
Well,
very representative of kind of typical, both like it's the best version of common aesthetics of that era, you know?
I mean, not a day goes by, literally not a day goes by that I don't see somebody post like a loving tweet or review of Ginger Snaps or Jennifer's Body even. Like
Yeah.
things that I
I
think are actually influencing new filmmakers.
I'm trying to like look through and all I'm really seeing that's like representative of like what I know or what was like my education in horror in a way are like weirdly Saw and like Texas Chainsaw in that they are kind of like very low budget kind of movies that didn't necessarily have like a lot of financial promise. They were just made for commercial reasons, but then like artists were kind of born out of them, whether they were recognized or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the more common story that happens with horror movies is that like that play are a million pro or like a lot of great artists are probably come out of horror every year and like all of them are forgotten probably
Yeah.
or
I mean,
not noticed.
I think there are two, I would say, like toxic or damaging things about this kind of list. Because I mean, people like you and I don't normally go to these lists, right? We know what horror movies to watch. We've watched a lot of them.
Yeah.
This is a list that people who are just getting into the genre or looking for something to watch around Halloween would like watch this video and get ideas
And
on where to either start or what kind of movies to watch for Halloween. And I think there are two damaging components of this. One is, yeah, the lack of actually of diversity of all kinds. So I think even here you get a lot of horror stories like kind of about the same things, the same kind of problems even. That's what happens when you don't really have diversity. But the other thing is that the higher you go up on the list, the more the list seems determined to legitimize horror as like a true genre, which
Yeah,
needlessly and arbitrarily separates the movies. Like,
this is I hate this idea that we have to redeem horror because I think the point is that it's not something to be redeemed.
mhm.
The point is that it is this fringe thing that kind of offends and distorts and you know I don't think it's supposed to achieve that. I don't think it's supposed to do that for you, you know? I don't
Yeah,
know why you would want it to. I don't go to horror to be kind of assured of my beliefs, you know? The re the you know the reason love something like Texas Chainsaw is because it undermines kind of your sense of security in your just
for
in day-to-day
sure.
life. It makes you feel like you're probably going to die in the stupidest way possible at any second. And I feel like that's more profound philosophically than something that's just like, did you know white people are scary? I'm like, yeah, I know that. I live near them. I live with them. I am one.
Yeah.
They're fucking terrifying. I already knew that, but like, what, you know, make me uncomfortable with that. I want,
And I think
or
that like awkwardly the movie on here that invests most deeply in like the psychology of women is ironically made by an actual rapist.
yeah. Although I'm obviously sympathetic to Alien in that conversation, but I
Yeah,
would agree that Rosemary
I
is,
just mean like Rosemary's Baby gives us the most psychology of its main lead.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. No, I know what you mean. I agree. I agree. I feel like obviously we're heading towards like the whole dis ongoing discourse of like horror movies are about like trauma now, but the thing is like that's literally inherently the genre. Like
yeah,
every single horror movie ever made, no matter how good or bad, is like inherently by definition about trauma. You know what I mean?
it's
Like
easy.
it's
Well, I mean, you can
literally
trace it all the way back to Lon Chaney's Phantom of the Opera, right? The reason why that was so scary to us was because it looked like the bad masks and prosthetics that World War One vets who were deformed came back like
yeah.
looking like. We were dealing with trauma as a nation. It's always
It,
been about trauma.
I mean,
And maybe
yeah,
like the
these are
idea
all
of legitimizing trauma to me is sanitizing it. So that's why I have such a knee-jerk reaction to seeing some of these more accepted by the status quo horror movies like
that's
Lambs on here.
why. It's like I don't know how something can be effectively horrifying if it's accepted in a weird way.
Exactly. That's why
I
when I
just
hear
don't
if a
know.
horror movie won awards, I'm like, nah. And that's why I
Yeah,
think that the great ones aren't on, well, there are great ones on this list, but the ones that are really pushing it, like pushing where horror is going, aren't on here.
I agree. I agree. I don't know. That's just kind of my experience with it, especially as someone who loves like exploitation film and kind of the kind of seedier side of the genre. But I mean like look at something like Sleepaway Camp. Like I think
Yeah.
that's it made me uncomfortable. It made me confront shit I didn't want to confront about myself, and I think I was probably better for it. I didn't realize it at the time, and I was actually I didn't like that movie when I first saw it because it bothered me. And then
Mm.
I started asking like why that kind of thing bothered me. And so I think it's productive for it, even if aspects of it are kind of reactionary. And
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the hallmark of a great horror film is that it's a little reactionary. It's a little fucked up and inappropriate
It's
and
all about like
irresponsible.
it's reactionary, it's about trauma, but more importantly than any of that, it's about like repression. It's something that we're
Yeah,
not coming to grips to as an audience member or as a society.
yeah, yeah,
And
I
that's
agree.
why
I agree.
I don't think you can legitimize it. I don't
Yeah,
think it should
that's
be.
I agree. I agree. Especially when you watch something like the Romero's Dead films
Yeah.
too. Or even something I mean like again people will say like The Shining is obviously The Shining has infiltrated the mainstream, but at the time of its making I doubt Kubrick expected that to occur. Um and it is just in general a movie about like a dad who drinks too much and beats his family. So like I don't
Yeah.
know. And and I guess you could argue it's a failure in that people fixate on the supernatural aspect of it. as opposed to the not supernatural aspect. But even then, you have something like Carrie, De Palma's Carrie, again, King, you
Yeah, but
know.
I like that movie a lot more than you do, I think.
Oh, I like that movie. I like
I
Carrie a
honestly
lot.
think Carrie was like the original cinematic Columbine kid. I think there's a lot
Yeah,
to go
I
into with
love
her.
that movie. I think it's
Oh, I
great.
didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, it's I really like that movie. I like how it's a movie that like starts with a period, like it's a
Well, I
design
think that
to
that's not on here simply because it is about a woman or something, because that's normally on lists like these. Maybe it actually is moving the dial.
This is
Maybe
this is this is also why I love Italian horror, of course, because so much of
yeah.
them are like so many of them are sadomasochistic to like the nth degree. Like literally the premise of we talked about when we made a video very early on and are knowing each other about Tenebrae. Like Tenebrae, the whole premise is that they're like, you're kind of a sick fuck for making movies like this. Do you enjoy like watching women get butchered? Do you enjoy these images? Do
Yeah.
you actually enjoy watching like people you perceive as like social aberrations, like gay people, get like butchered? And he's like, yep, what are you gonna do about it? I don't care. And like it's like, all right, I guess you win. Like it's like Argento, I guess if you're so honest, what am I to do? And you get that with others. You get that like with Sergio Martino, um, or Fulci, who I adore. I
Yeah.
adore Fulci.
I think the stuff that
Um,
is still shocking is not on this list. Like even
oh yeah,
the cannibal
absolutely.
exploitation films, the Italian ones, right? Holocaust not on here,
Yeah,
understandably.
in retrospect, I'm kind of surprised by that. I would also say something like, I guess it's not popular enough. I guess The Beyond would be more likely as far as Fulci, but I do think The New York Ripper is extremely like seedy and disturbing, and even today.
For
And I
sure.
think you might get that with some Mario Bava movies as well.
And while I like Suspiria like the most, I'm with you in the sense that I don't think that that's the one that's influential to people now, the Argento film. I think it is more either Tenebrae or Opera. I'm with you on that
Hmm.
idea. Like,
Yeah.
like those are moving the dial, but I'm just
Uh,
happy to see Argento represented, I guess. That was kind of that. I guess that was the curveball,
hmm.
slightly.
Hmm. And I mean, then we have like the opposite end that kind of like has its cake and eats it too, of both ways of being like art and legitimately upsetting to people, which is a Solo. Um, but
Yeah.
I don't know where you would fit that in a conversation on horror because it is objectively, a film about horror and objection and such. But is it a horror movie? I don't think so. But
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about a movie that has gotten a lot of buzz, is like Possession, right? Movies like those should probably be around
yeah,
here.
yeah. And I'm less and less with time sure if I qualify even Cronenberg as a quote unquote horror filmmaker.
But he is
Um,
influential and he should be on a list like this right now.
Yeah, like The Fly makes sense, but I mean like I mean
I
my
mean,
my
put
darling
go full
baby Craft.
Videodrome. Put Videodrome on
Yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly. And Videodrome is again a movie that's designed not to be appealing to people, or supposedly, because I think it kind of has infiltrated its own kind of niche, despite being a movie about BDSM and
I am
suicide and
shocked
having
we didn't get
dinner.
like any Barker.
Yeah,
Candyman, that absolutely should have been here. Candyman, like what the fuck
Candyman
was
is
it
good.
not doing here? We can only have one
Uh,
black story on
I'm
here. I forgot.
I'm I'm surprised Evil Dead's not on here. I felt like that
Oh,
would have been a
good
popular
pull.
choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a popular choice. Um, and
Well, because
understandably, or
this list was obsessed with
House,
being legitimate.
House, like
Oh yeah.
Kobayashi's house.
Oh, the
I
one
feel like
good J horror. Yeah.
just because like that one Criterion has like legitimized that one to the
Yeah.
detriment of every single other movie that man made. Um, we also didn't get any of like the Hammer horror.
No, it didn't.
I'm guessing they chose Universal over that because they thought a Hammer might just be seen as
And
like
I
the
was talking shit
terrible.
earlier, but like Takashi Miike is a modern master. I do enjoy a number of his films. Um,
I
Not seeing him here is kind of weird.
Yeah, I like the guy.
I just
I
typed
don't
in
know.
best horror films into my Google. Just want to see if anything random popped up. It's
I
like
mean, I'm
obvious.
surprised they didn't try to shoehorn in like David Lynch even.
Yeah. I'm not seeing anything that just sticks out terribly to me. You know, the ones that obviously didn't make it for reasons, I guess, like Blair Witch Project and Lost Boys and you know, Hellraiser. Like I mean, I get it. They don't have to be on it, but still.
Hmm.
This also wasn't a list that was interested in any sort of gay homoeroticism.
Yeah.
Except for like Norman Bates and Silence of the Lambs. You don't get like Lost Boys or Clive Barker on here. No Schumacher, no Fright Night.
Mm.
But I want to thank you for joining me, Isabel. Do you have anything else to say?
No,
All right,
no.
wonderful. Thanks for watching.